10th is now in session. Just a reminder, please make sure your cell phones are off, and if you have conversations, please take them outside of the room so that we can hear what the applicants and the community members, what their testimony is. Just a reminder, too, that this meeting, in conformance with the open meeting law, is being live streamed, just for your information. As I look in the room, at the PAC room today, I see there are a lot of new faces. So what I'd like to do is remind everybody that we are here to receive new information. So if you're here to speak in support or in opposition to a project, put your name and address on the record. If somebody has already stated your reason for your support or in opposition, leave it at that. Just put your name and address on the record. If you have new information, however, please tell us about that. That way, we learn more about the project than we would normally if everybody repeated what everybody else said, okay? So I think that's all I'm supposed to say to you. Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. The first order of business is the approval of the hearing minutes of June 21st, 2018 and June 26th of 2018. I need a motion.
Motion approved as written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, motion carries.
Calling the first case for extension, calling BZC 3349468 Willow Court. Name and address for the record, please.
68 Willow Court.
Name and address.
Oh, name and address, excuse me. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller, 28 State Street, Suite 802 here in Boston. We're looking to seek a one-year extension to this approved project in Dorchester. The developer recently acquired a very small abutting parcel from DND, and they're looking to use that to address some pedestrian and vehicular access for the project. They're working with DND for design review to do that, and they just need more time to get through that process.
And there's a possibility of combining lots and making it really...
A very small lot, but
okay.
And no new building on there, more for just vehicular access and driveway access.
May I have a
I
motion?
make a motion for a one-year extension.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set.
Thank you.
Calling the next three cases for extension, calling BOA 576951 240 Hancock Street, BOA 576976 1203 to 1211 Dorchester Avenue, and BOA 576-954, 166 Pleasant Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Rebecca Lee from Mid-Slevin. I'm here for the components. We're asking for a one-year extension on three related zoning relief decisions. They relate to the dock block project in Dorchester. Since these approvals were given, the partnership has been recapitalized, a new architect has been retained. There's a new development group that is moving forward with the project in redesign in consultation with the BPDA and with BTD on matters of density, parking, and access. So we're seeking a one-year extension to finalize design of the project and approvals through the BPDA, including a notice of project change and potentially additional zoning relief from this board so that we can move to construction in 2019.
Make a motion for a one-year extension.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Who's the new architect on it?
Stantec.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 589-339 240 Tremont Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Christine Walsh, 122 Quincy Shore Drive with Lee Kennedy Company.
Paul McDonald, 122 Quincy Shore Drive, Lee Kennedy Company.
Tell us what you're requesting.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. This morning we're requesting an extension for purposes of installing an electronic billboard at 240 Tremont Street. We're anticipating that will be installed in December of this year. And there was a little confusion with this in that there was a permit pulled first for the electronic billboard. The permit for the building itself was pulled subsequent to that. So kind of the cart went before the horse.
So, but the permit is still valid. It's within the 2 years of the approval.
Correct. It will be
Okay.
expiring July 18th.
Oh, good.
Make a motion for a one-year extension.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Calling the next two cases for extension, calling BOA 585-276-1472 Tremont Street. Companion case BOA 585-275-1474 Tremont Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Don Weist with the Dane Torpy firm, 745 Atlantic Avenue in Boston. With me is Jason Savage, principal of Savage Properties.
Tell us the reason for your request.
This is a 33-unit project. 29 units are in a new construction building that is well underway. There are two existing historic pudding stone buildings which front on Tremont Street. Folks familiar with the street may know these buildings. They're very attractive older buildings. They're being rehabbed, and each one will have 2 units after the job is done. They are currently the field office for the project. They're the last piece of the project for that reason, and we need to extend the permits on those. We're about to pull the permits for them, but we're getting up close to the 2-year mark.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to extend 1 year?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Calling the next two cases, calling BOA 600-5224 Winthrop Street, with companion case BOA 600-5238 Winthrop Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Laureen Scatino from Richard Linz's office, 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, Massachusetts. We're here today asking for a 1-year extension on 4 and 8 Winthrop Street. We're in the process of completing design review on these. This was delayed due to the building collapse on these 2 properties.
Okay. May I have a
A
motion?
1-year extension.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you.
Next case, BOA 590-676-387-391 Summer Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Attorney Laureen Scatino from Richard Linz's office, 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, Massachusetts. Here on 387-391 Sumner Street, also asking for a 1-year extension. We're in the process of finalizing the design and financing, but they are expected to start this summer or early fall on construction.
Is it the design or is it the financing that's slowing these projects down?
More so the design.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
1 year extension. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
Calling the
Have a
next
couple
case.
more.
No, she's going to be there for
Okay.
calling BOA 588-063, 23 Brook Street.
Laureen Scatino, Richard Linz's office, 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, Massachusetts, requesting a 1-year extension on 23 Brook Street. Again, finalizing the design. We're expecting to start this summer for our early fall for construction.
Motion for 1-year extension.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now we get to the good ones. The next 4 cases for extension, calling BOA 463-157-202 Maverick Street, BOA 463-162-210 Maverick Street, BOA 463-160-212 Maverick Street, and BOA 463-164-208 Maverick Street. Name and address for the record.
Laureen Scatino, Richard Linz's office, 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, Massachusetts, 202 through 12 Maverick Street are all companion cases. This is actually ready to begin construction. We're just awaiting demolition on the existing building, so we're requesting a 1-year extension.
Motion, please.
Motion for a 1-year extension.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
This is for building code, calling BOA 836-537, 140 West Canton Street. This is section, the 9th edition, 780 CMR, 1011 stairways, 1011.12.2 roof access, where a stairway is provided to a roof access to the roof shall be provided through a penthouse, complying with section 1510.2. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm John Greenup, counsel for the owner, 45 Foster Street, Cambridge, Massachusetts. And with me is Matt Cerisi, who is the instructor on the project. Your address?
The address for the project is 140 West Canton, 64 Franklin Street, Arlington.
So tell us What brings you here? Do you have a case related to any other appeal action, or is this purely building code?
This is purely building code.
Okay.
Matt Cerisi has applied for a alteration permit to add a roof deck to 140 West Canton Street. As part of the review process, the Inspectional Service Department has issued a building code refusal for requiring a penthouse on the top of the building. We asked the Landmarks Commission if that was possible, and Landmarks Commission has written us a letter which says that they will not allow a roof deck because it's visible from the street, so or a head house. So what we would like to do is have relief from the building code section 1011.12.2, which requires a head house for occupied roofs. There's an exception for buildings without an occupied roof to use a hatch, and we would propose to use a hatch that's approximately 27 square feet, which is more than the requirement for access.
Mr. Pisani, do you have the plans?
I have the plans, but I don't have information as to what exactly you're proposing. Do you have a
We're proposing
do you have a picture? Do you have a diagram?
Yes.
And is the access for one unit only or for the total building?
The access is for a single unit. It's a single-family house.
Top floor unit.
Yes. As part of the long-form permit, we're proposing to change the occupancy from two-family to single-family as well.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the type of hatch submitted is fine. Approved these before. Make a motion to grant the relief requested.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Thank you.
Calling the next case for G-Card, calling BOA 802-283-270 to 280 Huntington Ave. This is interior renovations throughout the building, including recharge surface runoff at the building located in the Groundwater Conservation Overlay District. The violations, Article 32, Section 9, G-Card enforcement. Name and address for the record, please.
Eric Chamberlain, Davis Square Architects, 248 Elm Street, Somerville, Massachusetts.
Attorney Tim Schofield, 20 Park Plaza, Suite 1115, Boston.
Tell us what you're proposing to do.
So we're doing interior renovations to kitchens, bathrooms. There's also a project to renovate some of the facade, and we've triggered compliance with the Groundwater Conservation Overlay District. So to that end, we applied for a rejection permit from the ISD, and then subsequently went to Boston Water and Sewer Commission, who has approved the Coltech infiltration system that we'll be installing under the sidewalk on the street on Huntington Avenue.
Okay. Christian?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Christian Simonelli, Boston Groundwater Trust, and we do have the BWSC approval letter.
Okay. Do you have it in the record, Mark?
We do, Madam Chair.
May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You're all set. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the 9:30s. Are there any deferrals or withdrawals for 9:30? Address, Counselor? Address, please.
Good morning, Mike Ross from Prince Lobel at 1 International Place.
Address.
The address I'm deferring is 217 Commonwealth Avenue, BOA 820.
Yes, I have it here. You want to do my job?
Sorry.
You can come up here. Calling BOA 820-986-217 Commonwealth Ave. Name and address for the record, please. You already did
Mike
it.
Ross from Prince Lobel. The applicant, Hexagon Properties, is requesting a deferral, hopefully to July 31st, so that she can talk to the Neighborhood Association in the Back Bay about some additional issues. This is the Algonquin Club, and we're making great progress. We wanted to see if we could get a couple more weeks just to work everything out.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to defer.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The date, please?
We can do July 31st.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other deferrals, Counselor? Address?
I have two deferrals today at 29 Oak Street.
29 Oak, for the record, calling BOA 777098, 29 Oak Street. And the other one, Counselor?
And the other one is 17 Eastman Street. That will actually be a withdrawal. 17 Eastman.
All right, so let's do Oak Street first. Name and address for the record, please.
Patrick Mahoney with the business address of 160 Federal Street.
And what are you requesting on this one?
We're requesting a deferral today, and the reason behind it is because part of our relief being sought is groundwater conservation, and the plans have not been adequately approved by Boston Water, so we would like to seek a deferral for that purpose.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The date, please.
We're into August 28th.
We'll see you August 28th at 11:30.
Thank you.
And the other address, Counselor? I'm sorry.
We'd like to withdraw 17 Eastman Street.
For the record, calling BOA 674-326, 17 Eastman Street. Name and address for the record.
Patrick Mahoney with the business address of 160 Federal Street, representing Boston Brokerage Group.
May I have a motion?
Make a motion for denial without prejudice.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll
Thank you.
see you again.
Are there any other withdrawals or deferrals for 9:30? Hearing none, we'll call the first two cases for 9:30. Calling BOA 802-785, 116 to 120 Moore Street. There is a companion case, BOA 802-786, 126 Moore Street. This is for 116 to 120, combined 3 lots and subdivided into 2 lots. Lot A will contain 6,149 square feet, and Lot B will contain 3,745 square feet. The existing house to remain on Lot B. Violations Article 9, Section 1, extension of nonconforming use. Lot size changes to a 3-family and a 2-family subdistrict. Article 53, Section 9, excessive FAR. Article 53, Section 56, off-street parking and loading requirements is insufficient. This is for 126 Moore Street. This is combined 3 lots and subdivided into 2. Also seeking to erect a 3-story building with 4 residential units and 4 parking spaces at 126 Moore Street, which will contain 6,149 square feet. 116 to 120 Moore will contain 3,745 square feet and remain on the lot. The violations, Article 53, Section 8, a 4-family use forbidden in a 2-family subdistrict. Article 53, Section 9, excessive FAR. Article 53, Section 9, a number of allowed stories has been exceeded. 2.5 stories is the max. Article 53, Section 9, insufficient side yard setback, 5 feet is the minimum. Article 53, Section 9, insufficient rear yard setback, 30 feet is the minimum. Article 53, Section 9, the front yard setback, 5 feet is required. Article 53, Section 54, screening and buffering, none is proposed. Article 53, Section 56, off-street parking and loading requirements, insufficient parking. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano here representing, with an address of 15 Broad Street, representing Deborah White and her family, the owners of both 116 and 126 Moore. Here with Matt Eckel from my office and Jim Chen, who's the architect on the project. As was mentioned, we're seeking zoning relief to subdivide an existing lot into 2 lots. One would have an existing building now on it. It's a 7-unit, very small, 300, 400 to 500 square foot units owned by the family now. And they're proposing to erect a 4-unit building, which they will live in. So them, their children, in the new proposed building on the left-hand side and newly created lots. Both of the lots in its totality would be slightly under 10,000 square feet. The newly created lot would be 6,149 square feet, and the existing lot with the building on it would remain at 3,745 square feet. The gross square footage of the new building would be 6,400 square feet. And just to go over the floor plans and unit sizes, the first level would contain parking. You'd have a driveway in the middle between the 2 parcels. It would be exterior parking, and then you would have 2 units, but all of the units in the building are 2-bedroom. The first floor, first level 2 units would be 1,050 roughly square foot units, 2-bed, 1.5 bath. And then there'd be duplex units for the family on the second and third floor. Those units would also be 2-bed and 2-bath as well, around 1,800 square feet. So that would be 4 units in total. We had an extensive community process. We've got the support of the Harborview Group, the Orient Heights Civic Association. We also have 23 letters of support, letter of support from our state rep as well. This will allow the family to...
Councilor, can you talk through the violations?
Sure. This is 2F 4,000 district, so the use would be...
Is it 2,000 or 4,000?
It's 2,000, 2F 4,000.
2F 4,000?
Correct.
Okay.
So obviously the use, we're seeking a variance for that. FAR is allowable as 0.8, we're at 1.04. The building height, 2.5, 2.5 stories, we're at 3, which is quite common. Sent a map, an overview of some of the other buildings in the area. The side yard minimum is 5 feet, and although we do meet it on one side, we're slightly short 2 feet on the other at 3 feet. We have a Massport open space park on that side though, so nothing can be built to the left of us. It will remain as open space. The rear yard setback is 30 feet required. We're at 3, although behind us, as you can see, is just a huge area of open space and trees. So
is that public or private?
It's private.
It's private, so there's a possibility that there will be a budding development.
It would be very difficult to put it in, there would have to be a
Regardless,
pork
but there's
chop.
possibility.
It could be, yes, correct.
Yeah, okay.
And parking required would be 5, and we have 4 spots.
We have 4, okay. So tell us about this subdivision. So it's taking 3 lots and subdividing it into 2?
Correct. So combining
So
and then
how-
subdividing.
what is the current lot layout? Is that included in the?
So there's a plot plan on page 2. And you can see on it shows the existing structure, the driveway in the middle, and where the newly proposed building, sort of like an L shape, would go. The total square footage of the lot is slightly under 10,000 square feet.
So what are the original lot lines, or parcel lines?
So it's sort of a hodgepodge of 3 different parcels mixed up. But roughly, you've got where the building's edge is, sort of where the newly created parcels. All of the back area, I believe, Matt, right, is all one separate lot. So the rear yard would be all one separate lot, and then there's 2 lots in the front.
Okay. And this proposed property line for the existing building is essentially a flag-shaped lot. Is that what I'm seeing on the plans, or
Yes,
is it?
the L-shaped
Yes,
building,
okay.
correct.
Okay.
And parking in the middle, entranceway for garage, entranceway for the parking, and then you'd line the spots right in the middle between where the building is and the newly existing building and newly created building.
And there's going to be some kind of deed restriction or
For parking.
for parking, for
Correct.
access to
Those
parking?
would go with the newly created building.
Okay, the other question I have really is I'm just looking at this rendering here. What's the distance between the buildings? Because I see a car trying to nudge out of there. That looks like it might have.
It's 11 feet
It's
between
11
the two.
feet.
Correct.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bizzani?
As long as you're adequate.
Yeah. Any questions from the board?
How many units are there in that, multi-unit?
So it's
Existing?
a few of them aren't used, but there's 7 small, sort of you'd almost be micro units between 300, 400, and 500 square
And
feet.
when were those approved?
Oh, that building goes back. It was in their family.
It's been like that since 1963 when we moved in, so.
It's been those tiny units?
It was 9 tiny units. We
And it's
kind of
7
combined
by exactly
one
what it's
to
zoned.
make it 8, so that they've been combined here and there, but it's been there forever.
So how many bedrooms then in the current buildings? Must be 7. Or are they studios?
Yes,
Yes,
some of them are studios, yes, but you could say 7.
And the lot to the left, that's owned by the MBTA?
It's actually owned by Massport, and that's restricted so to not be built on, so that's open space that they
And
maintain.
right now, it's just grass, there's nothing there?
That's it, yep.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jesus Garcia with the Office of Neighborhood Services. During the community process, the project received the support from the abutters and also from the association. That's why we would like to go on record in support for the project. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Mr. Ehrlich?
Yeah, Jeff, the
Yes.
EPDA recommendation is now
Correct. This is extensive. Lot coverage is excessive.
I'm sorry?
Lot coverage and design.
Okay. That makes sense. Given all this information, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve with continued BPDA design review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is the design review focused on kind of reducing the massing, or so that it doesn't feel so excessive?
The design review is focused on what BPDA desires to cooperate with the neighborhood, and it looks as though this has been approved by the neighborhood, so, you know.
Okay.
Before we vote, is it possible to?
We already voted.
The motion was just made. but-
No, we already voted.
Okay, never mind. Then I guess my
Just
question.
clarification, yeah.
The clarification was just, is it possible to modify the design to speak to the issues BPDA?
We'll be here, we're available as board final arbiter should that occur. So just see what you can do. Okay?
Thanks.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 826-533, 217 Paris Street. This is demolish the existing structure, erect a 4-story building with 5 residential units and 5 interior parking spaces. The violations, Article 53, Section 8, the MFR is forbidden. Article 53, Section 9, insufficient additional lot area per unit. Article 53, Section 9, the maximum allowed at the FAR has been exceeded. Article 53, Section 9, the number of allowed stories has been exceeded. Article 53, Section 9, the maximum allowed height has been exceeded. Article 53, Section 9, insufficient usable open space per unit. Article 53, Section 9, insufficient side yard setback, 2.5 is the minimum required. Article 53, Section 9, insufficient rear yard setback, 30 feet is the minimum required. Article 53, Section 54, screening and buffering required. Article 53, Section 56.5, off-street parking maneuverability. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano with an address of 15 Broad Street. I'm here with Matt Eckel from my office, and also Tom Falcucci, who is the owner of 217 Paris Street. As was mentioned, we're here seeking zoning relief to demolish the existing structure that you see at 217 Paris and erect a 4-story residential building with 5 condominium units and 5 interior parking spaces on site in the rear.
Let me just look at this. So it's 5 residential and 5 parking. Okay.
Correct. The building had been abandoned and was had a fire inside of it, so it hadn't been occupied for a while. When he purchased it, just to go over the layout, the lot size is 2,500 square feet. This particular zoning district is a 3F 2,000. And again, we're at 40 feet, 4 stories. Just to go over the floor plan, first floor would have lobby and would have the 5 interior parking spaces with lift accommodation. Second floor would have unit 1 and 2 at 704 square feet and 929 square feet. A 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and a 2-bedroom, 1-bath with a deck, rear deck. And then the third floor, units 3 and 4, 740 and 929 square feet respectively, 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and a 2-bedroom, 1-bath with a deck again. And then the larger unit on the 4th floor, so the penthouse unit, 1,347 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, with a front and rear deck. So what we did, we put a series of pullbacks on the project. On the 2nd and 3rd floor, we put a 10-foot rear setback on the building. And on the 4th floor, we put a 10-foot front setback and a 20-foot rear setback on the building. as to cut back on the massing. We did have an abutters meeting, it went very well, and I can go over a few of the violations now as well. This particular use, 5 units and a 3F, so we're seeking a variance for use. For additional lot area, 3,000 required, we've got 500. FAR of 1 is allowed, we're at 2.67. The height is 35 feet, although right next to us, I had a project on the old Salesians building at 4 stories, so we kept with that at 40 feet, 4 stories. Usable open space, 300 per unit, we're at 25 per unit. Side yard is 2.5 feet, we're at right on the property line. Rear yard is 30, we're at 10, and off-street parking space required would be 8, we have 5, so 1 for 1.
Okay. And this is an elevator building?
Just the handicap accessibility unit.
To the second floor?
To the second, correct.
Okay. And tell us how the parking is proposed to work?
You enter through a garage door, so it's interior parking. There'd be 2, if you look at page A 1.1, there's 2 parking spaces off to the left side, and then the 3 as you go back deep into the building, so 5 total.
And this is basically going to the lot line, this building?
There's
at
10...
at the basement level?
At the basement level, it's 10 feet away from the lot line.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board?
Is the footprint the same as the existing building?
As the current building? Yeah, so it's right on the lot line, so exactly.
Any questions from the board?
How many units were in the existing building before the fire?
It's a one-family structure, one-family building, so it had like 3 bedrooms in it. Six.
Go ahead. 6 bedrooms?
Yes, currently.
Okay. And this is no issue with base flood elevation? No, it's just to accommodate the parking?
Correct.
Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jesus Garcia with the Office of Neighborhood Services. We would like to speak on record support for this project. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have Mr. Council with the Advocate's Office. Would like to be recorded in support of this project.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, we have Council Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please? Oh, sorry, Mr. Ehrlich.
Jeff, can you speak to the recommendation from the BPDA?
Yeah, we were just hoping to keep it consistent with what's surrounding the surrounding neighborhood. Sorry. We know it was a 1 family, but going from 1 to a 5, 1 to a 5 seemed a little excessive at the time.
And has there been conversation about, with respect to that recommendation?
So this is purely from a planning perspective?
From a planning perspective, yes.
Okay.
But I will I'm sorry.
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to mention that 3 doors down is there was the Paris Street development that the CDC, I was here, it was a 33-unit development approved by the BPDA. So.
we can look at the exceptions, but you know, what's the rule on that street? So, okay. May I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve, but with extensive BPDA design review to speak to the issues that have been raised in their recommendation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And also look at that garage door, because we're seeing a lot of those garage doors that give a different feel to the neighborhood than if they were more permeable. Okay?
Calling next case, calling BOA 819701, 4 Monument Square. This is to raise the existing rear second floor deck. The violations, Article 62, Section 62-25, roof structure restricted. Name and address for the record, please.
David McDonald, 94 Bunker Hill Street, Charlestown.
Marilyn Darling, 4 Monument Square, Charlestown, Mass.
Tell us what you're proposing.
My client steps out her rear door of a unit onto her balcony and then has to set down 6 steps to an 8x11 deck on the roof below. The roof is like to raise her deck 42 inches, so she doesn't, you can eliminate the use of stairs to the deck.
Okay, and how large is this deck?
8 by 11.
8 by 11. How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate.
There's a BRA recommendation that says that the roof be accessible by hatch. I'm not sure I understand that. Is there anything in the drawings that indicate that that's necessary?
No, it indicates that there's a door that'll go out to the deck.
The hatch is for the unit in the rear of my client's unit, and they have a skylight. If there's a fire in that unit, they're gonna go through the skylight and up those 6 stairs to the egress fire escape. But we're not gonna touch those stairs at all.
Touching those?
No.
Okay, okay. Any questions from the board?
Now, is this visible from the street? Did you do a section cut? Because, you know, you're really raising it about, raising the deck, what?
Yeah.
Almost 4 feet, 42 inches from what is there now.
It's not visible from the street.
Yeah, it's setback, it has a side setback, and it's probably 40 feet from the front line property. It's not visible.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Christopher Breen from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, like to go on in support. We hosted a community meeting back in May 15th. About 8 people came, all were in support, and we received about 7 other emails, all in support. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Judy Everson, Councilor Lydia Edwards' office. She wishes to go on record in support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
I do have one more question. This deck is really an extension of an existing deck, isn't it? In other words, you come out the door.
Yes.
Of the unit, and there's a deck that runs along the back.
That is the fire escape balcony.
That's on the fire escape?
Yes.
And the depth of that is what?
3 feet.
And so this deck now brings itself in line with that level of fire escape?
Yes.
All clear, Mr. Pisani?
Yeah, no, I understand it. It's just that it's visually such a change to the rear. But
May I have a motion, please?
I'm going to make a motion for approval with BPDA design review with particular attention to the visibility of this deck from the rear.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set with that proviso.
Calling BOA 680-615-10 Bond Street. This is a construction of approximately 290 square feet roof deck on top of an existing flat roof, the L of a single-family dwelling. Violation of Article 64, Section 34, restricted roof structure regulations. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dennis Quilty, attorney at McDermott, Quilty & Miller, representing the property owner. Seated to my right is the property owner, Fred Bates. To my immediate right is the project architect, Ted Talukian. Good morning. And I'm sorry, and Dylan Forrester, who's with Mr. Talukian, who did a lot of our public outreach. Good morning again. Yes, ma'am.
Please go ahead. Tell us what's being proposed.
Yes, ma'am. I would, in another life, I might suggest to you that this was a simple application for a simple roof deck. However, as I think you will hear, nothing is that simple as it may look. This is, in fact...
That was an interesting preamble.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll hear some things that are interesting throughout the morning, but some of the members, I'm not sure how many, may remember that we were before you in 2013 with a similar application, which was denied without prejudice at that time. The property in question, the deck in question, sits between 2 existing roof decks, one at 8 Bond Street and one at 12 Bond Street. We are number 10 Bond Street. What we are seeking is precisely that which the 2 abutting neighbors have had since we think 2005 or thereabouts. There are, in addition to those 2 decks, there are a total of 7 roof decks on Bond Street, and within the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services 300-foot circumference for the meetings, abutter meetings, There are 38 decks, 38 in this neighborhood.
So, Mr. Quilty, can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
describe how this, tell us about the deck, the proposed deck?
The proposed deck is, I think Mr. Tolukian can better describe that, but it's very similar to that which exists on either side of us.
So what's the dimensions?
290 square
Yes,
feet
the
in total.
approximate square footage is about 294 square feet. In the package that we've handed out, it's essentially the same elevation as the decks to the left and to the right. The approximate dimensions are about 14 feet by 20 feet. The deck is in alignment with 8 Bond Street at the rear, and it is, as I said, approximately the same elevation. In the package that I gave to you, you'll see on the first page is the 300-foot radius of the ESNA district that shows the decks, and they're enumerated as shown. The second photograph shows basically the view from the rear of the property at 10 Bond Street, which shows the deck at 12 Bond Street to the left and also 8 Bond Street to the right. And as you see in the sections, it's out of the public way, and I also want to note there is an existing door that would be used for the rear deck access.
And this bedroom, bath, dormer are all existing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that is correct.
That's all existing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So,
How,
should-
so go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
go right ahead, ma'am.
How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate.
Now, how many units in this building?
It's a single-family home.
It's a single family?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I do want to point out, because it will come up in discussion, that one of the reasons stated on the record before this board when we were here in 2013 by a member who no longer sits on this board but sits on BPDA board, Mr. Monahan, was that the outcome of that vote would have been different had the property owner been present. Mr. Bates owns the building, has owned it since 2012, and he works in Argentina. He's an American citizen. He works in Argentina. He owns this property as a single-family home with the desire at some point in his life to come back and live here. In the meantime, for 5 years, he's had one tenant, an individual who's here today with his wife and child. Single-family home, one tenant, 3 people, including a child. That's who lives there. Mr. Bates was asked in some of our community meetings that since he did work in Argentina, how could he maintain the property?
This is all irrelevant. What I need to know is about the project.
Okay.
It's it's essentially resident occupied building.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not leased out.
No, ma'am.
So, okay, that's.
No, he owns the building. It's leased to an individual who's here.
Okay.
That person has been a tenant for 5 years.
Okay.
And has just re-upped with another lease.
Okay.
But I mean, I say this because I think you will hear plenty of things which have nothing to do with zoning.
Yeah, I just want to focus your comments too,
Yes, ma'am.
just on the zoning, okay?
I
Thank you.
think we have, the other thing I do want to add is that, and I know the plans for this were just submitted this morning by Mr. Tolukian, this deck, unlike the other two, is screened with vegetation, plantings, and fencing so that it does not create an intrusion, if you will, on the other 2 decks on either side of it. That was something we were asked to do. We've provided that plan. We think it does a nice job of privatizing, if you will, each of the decks so that there's no interaction.
Is there a rendering of there's a photo of the existing situation. Is there a rendering of the proposed?
I think we just, do you have the?
There is a
provided the-
floor plan which is rendered, which is on page 3.
Oh, okay, with the planters.
Yeah,
yes.
where the planters
Okay.
are. And
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
Mr. Quilty pointed out, there are planters to the left and to the right that would provide adequate screening and privacy to either
How high
side.
are the planters?
The planters are about 2 to 3 feet, but the screening of the plants would be as much as 6 feet.
Plans, Mr. Pisani.
Drawings are adequate.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Faisal Sharif with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We have had an extensive community process regarding this matter. There is a lot of strong abutter opposition to this. A lot of it is based on the fact that Mr. Bates does not live at the property itself. At the community meeting that we've had at the 8th Streets Neighborhood Association, the Neighborhood Association has asked for more support on Bond Street specifically. Since then, the applicants have collected more signatures on Bond Street. So there is some support, there is some opposition. In addition, the applicants have also gotten a property management firm, but it is occupied by another resident, and we don't feel that an owner-occupied building should be necessarily the standard for having a roof deck.
Thank you.
There's roof decks up and down the south end. It fits in with the historic character. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak in support?
My name is Harry Saccone. I'm the owner and resident at 7 Bond Street. I lived there for 63 years. I just met Mr. Bates yesterday. He found out that I had supported him in a neighborhood meeting, and he came by yesterday and asked me if I would support him. I live at 7, as I said. Been there 63 years, and I think I'm on the other side of the street, but I think I had the first deck on either one of those streets. I'm not sure.
You started this off, huh?
And this morning I looked out my bedroom window and I could count 17 decks. A double decker on my left and a single decker on my right. I have never had a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else to speak in support?
Good morning. My name is Harry Son. I'm the tenant at 10 Bond Street for the past 5 years, and I'm here to support the project. You know, Fred Bates has been a great landlord. He's been extremely responsive and servicing and maintaining the building, and you know, my wife and my child are very happy with the property and hope that you would approve the roof deck.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition?
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councillor Flynn's office. We would like to go on record in opposition to this project. There is a lot of opposition from the local neighborhood, and so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Caitlin Bush from Councillor Presley's office. We'd like to go on record in opposition to this project.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Karen Foley, Councillor Asabi George's office, and we also oppose the project because of the abutters' disapproval. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of the Council at Large Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dave Vittorini on behalf of City Councilor at Large Michelle Wu. We'd also like to go on record in opposition. Our office received a petition signed by 75 people against it, so that's the reason why we're going to oppose it.
Out of curiosity, how many of those people had decks?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Can I ask one question, sir? What was their reason for opposition?
They were in opposition because the owner doesn't live there and he hasn't lived there, and in 2013 this board said that when he lived there he could come back and apply, and he still does not live there.
Okay, great, thank you.
But that wasn't a proviso, it was just a recommendation. It was a statement made at the meeting, because that would never be a proviso as far as ownership tones.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Patrick Lyons on behalf of State Representative Aaron Mikowitz. I'd like to go on record in opposition.
Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair and the board. My name's John Maloof, and I am the owner and resident of 8 Bond Street, property that's been in my family home for 67 years. I stand here in opposition to the request in front of you, and I've asked my roommate, Ms. Iamoto, to articulate the reason.
So what, as a direct abutter, having a deck, what is your opposition based on?
So this property...
As far as the deck itself is concerned, ownership is something that we do not address. We look at zoning, and this is here for the deck.
Yes, ma'am. So in 2008, this property came before this board.
Let's talk about this deck today. What is your concern based on?
I attended the 2013 ZBA hearing where this board asked Mr. Bates, through council.
I just want to clarify, this was one member of the board.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we just need to make sure that today we're talking about this deck as is being currently proposed.
If I may,
Sure.
Gail Ciamoto, I'm here on behalf of a number of represented people living on Bond Street. There's a number of issues with this particular deck. One issue is that we have had problems with decks, particularly with a prior owner at number 12, where we had an absentee landlord. We had the owner left dogs out on the deck for hours, and it required 9 months of the police activity and animal control. And that was an owner that we were able to work with and have an issue. And it brought the attention of absentee landlords and decks really into focus for our very small street.
So, of the decks on your street, how many of those decks and how many of those buildings have you had issues with? Is this the exception? Was number 12 the exception?
We have had trouble with some decks, but we've been able to approach the owners and work with them. And I will say, one of our issues has been Mr. Bates' representations to this board in 2013 and to the 8th Streets Neighborhood Association that he intended to move into the property shortly. And we were somewhat skeptical, and 2 months after that hearing, his tenants, he's had other tenants, moved out, and he didn't move in, new tenants moved in.
I just want to focus on the deck because that is
yes.
what I need to really encourage everybody that we're not talking about the universe here and people's lives. We're talking about this deck, which is, what is it, 294 square feet.
I think the issue becomes it's on an L. It's off of each person's bedroom on that area. It carries noise very easily, and we have just had, I will quote Mr. Bates in the other owner trying to deal with him. He said, "I'm far away. I don't know you. I can't trust you," in terms of being able to work with him to resolve issues.
Okay.
And so we just want to be able to have someone who is responsive to us. We would ask that the board uphold its earlier decision, which is, when you live there, come back for a deck. If Mr. Bates was to live there, if his tenants were to buy the property, we would support the deck.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you. May I hear the next person, please?
Bailey Dent, 12 Bond Street. I've been an owner resident since
What's your address again?
12 Bond Street. And to clarify, it's the same building where there was issues prior, but that was with a renter. I don't think there's been any issues since I've lived there. I've lived there with 2 school-age boys, and my concerns and reasons for oppositions are very similar to the ones they mentioned, having an absentee landlord in such close proximity of school-age children.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking? Give us new information, please. Put your name and address on the record.
Hi, Patricia Collier, co-owner of 4 Milford Street in Boston, which is just around the corner from Bond Street. I oppose the deck as there is not going to be an owner occupant in the building.
Thank you.
That's it. I'm co-owner of the building too. And basically, the location, we have a licensed lodging house, single room occupancy. We have an apartment within 60 feet of the proposed deck. And the deck is very large.
Okay.
And that house also has an addition on it that was put on who knows when, years and years ago. So it has no backyard. So we're losing that.
Excuse me, do you live at 4 Milford or do you own 4
I
Milford?
own 4 Milford Street. I've owned it for 30 years. I have tenants in there. One is close to
Thank you.
over 25 years.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
That's it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bill Allen. My wife Sharon and I have owned 3 Bond Street for nearly 25 years. If Mr. Pace lived in the property, I might support it. He lives in Argentina.
Do you live at 3 Bond?
Pardon me?
Do you live at 3 Bond?
I'm the owner.
You're the owner, okay.
I'm the owner.
Thank you.
For nearly 25 years.
Thank you.
If he lived there, it'd be another thing.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jay Borden. I'm a tenant at 8 Bond Street for the past 4 years.
You're an 8 Bond?
8 Bond, tenant.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I oppose the roof deck based mainly on the fact that Mr. Bates is an absentee owner and lives overseas and has misrepresented his stated intentions to move back to the unit.
Okay, thank you. Last word, are you going to get the last word here?
Eric Anderson, 5 Hanson Street. I just have the concern whether or not the deck would have any shadow issues onto my apartment. I don't know if it does or doesn't.
Okay, thank you. I think the drawing shows that it won't, because they did show a view of it. Okay, given all this information.
May I just
No,
offer a
please.
rebuttal?
No. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve with continued BPDA design review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion. You're opposed? One opposition, motion carries.
Thank you.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 835-668, 2 Hull Street, Court. This is by installing a bronze metal siding on the exterior and new roof deck and a 10 by 15, also a private elevator, 5 units at 2 Hull Court with 5 units at 1 Hull Street Court. The violations, Article 54, Section 10, the rear yard is insufficient, and Article 54, Section 18, roof structure restrictions. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Anthony Rossi, Rossi Associates, representing the petitioner who's present before you, Mr. Rosano.
Tell us what's being proposed.
So this came before this board already, it was previously approved. The only issue is
What year was that?
2014.
Okay.
And what happened was the actual elevator was shown on the plan and also the roof deck, but it actually, it wasn't, the relief wasn't in the denial letter. So when he went to do the construction on it, they noticed that, so the new architect recommended he go back before this board for that.
I'm sorry, what was the hiccup on that?
The plan showed the elevator and showed actually a larger roof deck, but there wasn't appropriate relief listed in the denial letter that was before the board. So now we went back before the board to get the appropriate relief for same, but it was the same private elevator. The only difference is the roof deck we shrunk since what was really originally presented.
What is the size of this roof deck?
It's 100 square feet.
It's 100 square feet? Okay, and what's the occupancy of that building?
It's owner occupied, he lives in it, this is his
It's a
unit.
single family?
Single family.
Okay, and it's 100 square feet roof structure. What's the access to it?
It's private access from a hitch, not a head house.
Okay.
Just a roof hatch.
How are the plans, Mr. Bizzardi?
I'm candidly trying to figure it out. To get to the deck, there's access by a hatch, right?
Correct.
But the issue isn't that, is it? The issue is the elevator.
The elevator is in the back of the building.
But the elevator does not go to the deck, is that right?
It does not go to the deck, that's just for his internal access for his unit. It's only a private roof deck for him and no one else.
Okay.
It's a private elevator.
And I'm still confused then. Why are you here? What were you cited for?
Because the elevator itself violates a setback where it's located in the building.
But it's already built.
No, it's not been built. It has been built because of the relief. We did not, once the new architect figured out that he didn't get the appropriate relief, we came before this board, we met with the neighborhood.
Okay, but the reason I'm confused is I thought the initial presentation said that there were drawings with the elevator, but it wasn't cited.
There was, but then once he was starting to do the construction, they realized they didn't get the relief for that setback, so he did not do the elevator. He wanted to come before this board to get the appropriate relief before he was going to build any elevator.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Maria Lanza, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We would like to go on record in support. The applicant did go in front of the neighborhood groups, both the North End Waterfront Neighborhood Association and the North End Waterfront Residents Association, which they had support from back in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of Council Lodge, Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, board.
Now 10:30. I'm going to call 10:30 withdrawals or deferrals. Are there any 10:30 for withdrawals or deferrals? Let me take care of 10:30s real quick. Councilor, addresses, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. 40 Wilcox Street, Mattapan.
Oh, okay, it's deferred to August. Calling BOA 806-805, 40 Wilcox Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Attorney John Plugini, 10 Forbes Road, Braintree.
Tell us what are you requesting?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. We're requesting a deferral. This had a companion case, 48 Wilcox Street, and for some inadvertence, when ISD did the advertisement, they didn't include both, so I think it would be more beneficial for the board to hear both at the same time.
Absolutely. Do you have a date on the other property yet?
We don't.
Okay. We're deferring it to August is what it says here, so.
Okay.
Motion to defer.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
28.
August 28 at 11:30.
And I have one more.
Go ahead. The address?
1225, 1231 Center Street in Rosendale.
I'm sorry?
1225 to 1231 Center. It's two different,
Yep. So you're deferring both of these?
yes.
Okay. For the record, calling 695-061, 1225 to 1229 Center Street. BOA 695-062, 1231A to 1231B Center Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Attorney John Plugini, 10 Forbes Road, Braintree. The reason, Madam Chair and members of the board, for this deferral is we need an opportunity to meet. We don't have any abutters, residential abutters, but we have some institutional abutters, and we have a meeting this week to discuss the project with them.
Where on Center Street is this?
So it's right across from the Hebrew Rehab. It's a
From
small.
where?
From the Hebrew Rehab.
The old gas
Oh,
station.
Hebrew
It
Rehab.
used to be a gas station at one point.
Next to Sophia Snowhouse.
Sophia
Yes,
Snowhouse is
yes,
the board, yes.
Yes, okay. Oh, yes. Okay.
Motion for deferral.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The date,
There'll be date of August 29th as well.
August 28th.
28th, I'm sorry. 28th.
Okay, August 28th at 11:30.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Are there any other deferrals or withdrawals? Sir, 9:30, which one did you have?
Yes, thank you, members of the board. It's BOA 786.
That's all right, I'll call it in. Just give me the address, sir.
It's East Broadway, 500-502A East Broadway.
Okay, for the record, calling BOA 787-634, 500 to 502A East Broadway. Name and address for the record, please.
Anthony Rossi, Rossi and Associates, representing the petitioner. Also, his architect is present here, James Christopher from RCA Architects. We'd ask for it to be a deferral as we're working with a redesign of the project to address a lot of the neighborhood concerns and some of the abutters, so we need time to do a redesign.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
Motion for deferral.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll have the date, please?
28.
Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
500.
Are there any other deferrals or withdrawals? Hearing none, we'll call the next case.
We've got one more. Got one more.
Are you deferring?
Yes.
For what's your address, sir?
111 West Street, Hyde Park.
Yep. What's halfway down?
And this is for 10:30?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
halfway down the.
For the record, calling BOA 792-891, 111 West Street. Name and address for the record, please.
Give me Caesar.
Sorry, so are we all, your name and address for the record?
It's 111 West Street, Hyde Park.
Okay. And what are you requesting, a withdrawal or a deferral?
New parking.
Are you-
Building a new parking.
Okay, so are
We
you-
haven't
Driveway,
do you want us to hear the case today, or do you want us to hear it on another day?
another day.
Another day,
Yes.
okay. May I have a motion for deferral?
Motion for deferral.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The date, please?
Be August 28th.
Okay. So we'll see you August 28th at 11:30.
Thank you.
Are there any other deferrals or withdrawals? John?
Come in to talk about 111 West Street, he's just deferred it?
He's deferred, yeah.
How does that work?
August,
Come
we'll
back
see you
August 28th.
28th at 11:30.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next case for 9:30, BOA 819-770, 32 Temple Street. This is proposed parking for one compact vehicle. Violations, Article 10, Section 1, proposed parking is within 5 feet of the side lot line, and Article 23, Section 9, the dimension of the proposed parking is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Shane Early, 30-32 Temple, 30 Unit 1.
Tell us what you're proposing to do.
We're proposing, we live on the first floor, my wife and I and our 2 children. We have a back patio. We're proposing to use that area as a parking space. The space or the area is off of a private way, and adjacent to that is actually a parking lot. It's similar to how other spaces off of that private way are used. We're requesting 2 variances. One is because we're within 5 feet of our neighbor's property line. That property line is a brick wall without any windows. All of the people who own that building and live in that building have signed in support of our request. The other variance is because the spot would only be 17 feet long. Our car itself is 16 feet long in every space. We've asked neighbors for support and have over 30 signatures in support of that we've submitted.
Just I want to bring to your attention, the board, the VRA's recommendation. How are the plans, Mr. Bizzani?
The drawings are adequate. It's a rear parking off Coolidge Avenue.
So it's trading a patio space for a parking space?
That's about it.
Is essentially what it is?
Yep.
Okay.
Sir, do you have those support letters with you?
Yes.
We don't have them in the record here.
Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Giselle Guerrero with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We would like to go on record in full support. We did host an abutters meeting, and they've met with the Civic Association. Every abutter that was there was in support. There was only concern from someone from, I guess, Lindsay's place from across, saying that at some point they may consider putting up a wall, but they weren't in opposition to this space either, so no concerns on our end.
And the access by the private way is not going to cause any fire issues or access issues?
No, it's used by every other person that has, it's off of Cambridge Street, and every other car comes and goes from that same location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councillor Flink's office, we would like to go on record in support as well. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
Calling the next case, calling VOA 808-988, 67 St. Paul Street. This is to construct a new roof deck and move the head house forward and over to the staircase. The violations, Article 41, Section 6, rooftop additions in a protected area. Name and address for the record, please.
John Moran, Alpine Advisory Services. Joining me is James Kelleher, the developer.
John, just gonna leave it there. Tell us what's being proposed.
We have proposed, there is an existing head house. We propose to move it 16 feet forward to provide better access to a proposed deck. The deck is 24 by 24 feet, parallel with the head house and to the rear of the head house. The location of the property is within the St. Paul Street Architectural Commission and is also subject to restricted roof deck structures. They're seeking relief today from Article 41, Section 6, subsection 16-4, restrictive roof structure. The existing roof is 7 feet 8 inches by 13 feet by 9 feet 7 inches. The new deck, the only alteration in the dimension is a foot wider. Otherwise, it is the same average height and width.
Tell us about that head house.
It is for access to the existing head house. The stairway to that head house does not comply with the existing building code. This is a gut rehab of the building in order to ensure compliant staircase access. We are moving the existing head house. If we were able to use the existing head house, we would not be before the board.
Correct.
The roof deck, as proposed, is a matter of right. The only reason we are before the board is that we are moving and reconstructing the head house.
And have you looked at a hatch alternative?
It doesn't work with the stairs?
It turns, the stairs keep on turning, existing staircase.
Even with a gut rehab, you can't make it work?
Very high ceilings there.
How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate. Is this deck accessible to the total building or just to one unit?
One unit, the penthouse.
And again, why doesn't the hatch work?
Stairs turn, and it has 3 turns in the stairs.
What's the dimension of the stairs?
8 feet wide, including both sets of stairs going up. Well, they're 3-foot stairs.
So you can't get an 8-foot wide hatch? I'm bothered by the closeness of the head house now to the front of the building.
It is not visible from the street.
Now, did you say the St. Charles Commission had looked at it, or going to up on the roof?
And the St. Vital Neighborhood Association.
No, I meant the commission.
The commission has exempted. It's not visible.
And you did a mock-up that demonstrates it's not visible? A full-scale mock-up on the roof?
There's still a mock-up.
There's still a mock-up there.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
I have filed for the record the support of the butters.
Hold on.
And
Giselle?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Giselle Gurr at the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We would like to go on record in support. The mock-up was up there when we went up there, but it's not, in fact, not visible from the public way. The abutters, we held 2 abutters meetings, one with the direct abutters next door to each of the property, including the tenants that live in the other 2 units. None of them have opposition to this going up. So at this point, we have no questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councilor Flink's office, we would like to go on record in support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion approval.
Second.
All those-
With actually, Jeff, does BRA have this or landmarks?
I think landmarks, but if they can't see it from a street, so do you just want straight approval?
Straight approval.
Do we want straight approval, or do we want to do the hatch thing? I'm asking this of Mr.
We
Pisani.
love a hatch.
Pardon?
That's up to the board.
Straight approval, as long as it's not visible.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion. You're opposed? I'm opposed too, but that doesn't matter, but motion carries.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 793-578, 66 West Rutland Square. This is a change order from a single family and 4 lodges to a 2-family and construct a 3-foot window bay on the street level through the 3rd story. Excavate basement slab to provide additional head height. Construct a rear balconies on the parlor and 2nd story and roof deck. The violations, Article 64, Section 9, the floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Article 64, Section 9, extension into the rear yard is not permitted. And Article 64, Section 34, roof structure restrictions. Name and address for the record, please.
Andrew Broussard, 66 West Rutland Square.
Jason Arthur, Architects, 350 A Street.
Tell us what's being proposed.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for your time today. This project is consisting of an addition of a 3-foot window bay off the back of the building from the street levels through the 3rd story. We're also proposing to do a minor excavation to increase the head height of the garden level. Currently, the garden level is approximately 7 feet in head height. We're looking to increase that to 8 feet to approximately 8.6. There is a portion of the garden level now that is finished living space. We're looking to expand that living space throughout the rest of the floor in the garden.
Is this a gut rehab, or?
It is a gut rehab.
It is a gut rehab,
Yep.
okay. So tell us about the extension into the rear yard, which are the 3 bays. What is the roof structure restriction? Are you putting in a deck up there?
We are also proposing a roof deck on the top level. The window bay does not extend to the top level, only the third level. So it's street level through third level.
The roof deck will be a private roof deck, only accessible via hatch for the top unit.
Okay. And I think the other violation is FAR.
Yeah, so we're increasing the FAR from a 2.3 to a 2.64. All of that, well, not all of it, but the vast majority of that is the expanding the living space in the garden level, which was within the footprint of the actual building. The window bay itself, more of an architectural feature. It's really only a 3-foot by 10-foot extension.
So tell us about the unit sizes.
Each unit's approximately 2,600 square feet.
2,600 square feet. How many bedrooms?
3 bedrooms each.
Finally, that's nice. And the parking is access from the private alley. Is that in existing condition?
That's correct.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
The drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Faisa Sharif with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We didn't have any abutter opposition to this, and the civic group is also in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tina Mullen from Councilor Kim Janey's office. We would also like to go on the record in support. We received a letter in support from the Civic Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Mr. Ehrlich, you had a question?
Yeah, are these units intended to be for sale or rental?
For sale.
Given that information, may I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval with BPDA design review for the rear.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with that proviso.
Thank you very much.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 830-926, 927 to 929 East Broadway. This is to add a new doorway to access from the dormer and construct a new roof deck or accompanying architectural. The violations, Article 68, Section 29, Roof Structure Restricted District, and Article 27S, Section .5. This is in the South Boston iPod applicability. Name and address for the record, please.
Andrew Bamberg, 927, 929 East Broadway.
Tell us what's being proposed, please.
It's just a roof deck.
A roof deck. Tell us about the dimensions.
That's 24.7 by 14.3. It's 440 square feet.
And how is it proposed to be accessed?
The access is going to be from, there's an existing dormer window that's going to be changed into a door.
Okay. And how many units in this building?
4.
4 units, and this will be accessible to the just the top unit.
Just the top unit.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
The drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We would like to go on record in support. We have received some letters of support that the applicant has gathered in the neighborhood. We would just like to ask that if the board does grant the relief, it have a BPDA design review, because at the abutters meeting, one of the concerns was it is across the street from a landmarked building. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition?
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councilor Flink's office. We would like to go on record in opposition of this project. This is an Article 68 project, and so there is a lot of, there has been concerns from the neighborhood as well. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of Councilor Michael Flaherty. Due to the communal effort that went into drafting and implementing Article 68, the council is unable to support the project at this time, but would defer to the board's decision.
Okay, so what was the concern about visibility from a...
It's a historical building across the street. It's a mansion across the street with historical significance, but they have a roof deck, or they have outside space themselves.
Okay.
There's many around the area that are like it.
May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval. approval with BPDA design review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with that proviso.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 836-636-603 Dorchester Avenue. This is to erect a new 6-story mixed-use building with commercial space on the first floor and 25 residential units above. Violation of Article 13, Section 1, lot area is insufficient. Article 13, additional lot area is insufficient. Article 13, floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Article 13, building height is excessive in feet. Article 13, Section 1, usable open space is insufficient. Article 13, side yard is insufficient. Article 13, Section 1, the rear yard is insufficient. Article 13, Section 1, the building height is excessive in stories. Article 23, Section 1, off-street parking is insufficient. And Article 24, Section 1, off-street loading bay is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is George Moranci. I'm an attorney with the business address 350 West Broadway in South Boston. I'm joined by my client, Christopher Roach. Madam Chair, members, this is an Article 80 small project. It was approved by the BRA Board of Directors on June 14th. One change from the project description as read into the record is the fact that this is now a 24-unit project plus ground floor commercial space. The site is the intersection of Dorchester Avenue and Boston Street and Andrew Square. It's the site of Andrew Square Auto Glass. It's a triangular site, approximately 4,074 square feet. The proposal is to develop a mixed-use building here with, as I say, ground floor restaurant space and 24 dwelling units above, 22 one-bedroom units, and 2 studio units.
22 one-bedroom and
22 ones and 2 studio units. These would be.
And what are the square feet?
These would be rental units. The square footages of the one-bedrooms range from 502 to a height of 581 square feet. The floor plates are substantially similar. The one-bedrooms are 502, 506, 511, 581, and 553. And the 2 studio units, which are located on the second floor, are 334 and 344 square feet.
334 square feet?
The studios, correct. The units deviation from the standard metro sizes makes this project subject to policy that is evolving at the BBDA and has not been approved.
So there is no policy if it's evolving?
I can't speak for the BBDA. I can speak with our communications with the BBDA and the requirements for this project and this building with respect to the unit sizes, which is that because the units do not meet standard metro size, there was a requirement for in-building amenity space. Sheet A1.2 of the plans indicates a second floor common room that is amenity space for the building. The formula we were provided was that for each unit that is not at standard metro size, 35 square feet is required in interior building amenity space. The result is that this project has a second floor common amenity room of 840 square feet, hence the reduction in the number of units from what was originally applied for. This policy was made known to us, or evolving policy, I guess, was made known to us shortly before the June 14th BBDA or BRA Board of Directors meeting when this project was approved. In terms of zoning, this is within a B1 district under the base code. This is B1. It's not in Article 68. It is, however, within the South Boston Dorchester Avenue study plan area. This is in the 60-foot bonus density height zone. It is also within use area 1B, which prescribes mixed-use buildings of this sort. There's no parking associated with this building. It's directly across the street from Andrew Square T Station, which is also the confluence of 7 bus lines. There is a zip car pickup and drop off on Preble Street. There's also a Hubway station at Dexter and Dorchester Avenue.
Go through the violations, please, on the, I can see that some of these are caused by the awkward,
The configuration of the site, it is,
configuration. But can you speak to the building height, the open space?
Certainly.
Open space, yeah.
The zoning district, as I say, is a B1, which means that for certain of the dimensional requirements, reference is made to the nearest S, R, or H district. In this case, it is an H1, which is the public housing development close to the site, which is zoned H1, also not within Article 68. Therefore, we have a minimum site requirement of 5,000 square feet. This site is 4,074 square feet. Lot width and frontage, it's zoning compliant. There's a maximum FAR here of 1, where it's 6.28. The maximum building height under B1 is 40 feet. As I say, we are in the 60-foot bonus density height district under the growth zone plan, and the building is at 60 feet. There is a 400 square foot per dwelling unit open space requirement, again under the default H1 zoning district. There's no open space proposed with this building. Again, it's got Dorchester Avenue on one side, Boston Street on the other side. It's in Andrew Square, and there was a pronounced preference, if not a requirement, during community process that there not be roof decks on this building, and there are no roof decks on the building. There's a 20-foot front yard setback requirement. This is essentially a modal alignment building on both the Dorchester Avenue side and the Boston Street side. With respect to the side yard setbacks, it's tough to tell with a building like this which is the side, but as I said, it's a modal alignment on Dorchester Avenue and Boston Street. There's a small setback in the rear, much like the existing building, and then there is going to be open space, I should say unbuilt space at the point of the site where there would be planned future outdoor patio seating for the proposed restaurant. There would be 4 IDP units associated with this project. My client is also making a $10,000 contribution to the Boston Parks Department for maintenance and upkeep of public open space in the area.
No, but, okay, so we just, okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
Discouraging in the following sense, that this again is a project where there is great diminution of the sizes of the units. And if I understand the trade-off, that is for a metro unit, which is supposed to be 450 square feet, if I come in at 449 square feet, I have to give 35 square feet over to public space. If I come in at 200 square feet, I still have to give over 35 square feet. So there's great incentive to, in fact, continue to reduce the sizes of these units. And the notion of providing interior space for the common good, it's not clear to me. And I'm concerned about the direction in which this is going. That is that we are building 1-bedroom, small 1-bedroom units and studios. Okay, impossible for families, impossible for, I think, another type of growth. That's all. And I understand it's already been passed, and I understand it is in transition. But I guess this member simply questions what the benefits are. And you received a height increase. What was the give back to the height increase?
Because yes, the FAR was 1, and the required, and this is 6 times that. 5 times that. It's 6. It's 6 point. Did you say 6.28? Right.
6.28.
Yeah.
So under the growth zone, there is no maximum FAR. There are no setback requirements. This is a 60-foot bonus height zone. With respect to the amenity space and the size of the units, my client had an option. He could have removed demising walls, kept the units otherwise exactly as they are, called them studios, and not have had to provide the in-building amenity space. So these would be, you know, spacious.
This is 800 square feet for how many units here? 24 units.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to get into a policy discussion with the board. I don't make the policy.
I'm just putting it out there. It's not directed at you. It's just a statement.
But you know, with respect to both the growth zone, which has been approved by the BRA board, and this policy in the making, we simply respond, comply, adhere to the requests, and certainly adhere to the growth zone plan. I don't, again, think it's appropriate for me to have a conversation about whether or not such policies are acceptable to the board. It's not my place.
Any other questions from the board?
We appreciate that. But,
Yes. Any other questions?
So I understand that you don't, the issue of parking is sort of off the table because you're right near
The location, exactly.
Yeah. What about loading dock? How's material going to get in?
So there was a lot of back and forth on the loading dock, and also another reason why there's no parking, it would possibly be one of the worst sites in the city in terms of getting cars in and out of a garage. So even without proximity to Andrews Square, it's certainly beneficial that it's so close to the square, to Andrews Station. We had plans to put a loading dock in, and on the side, essentially, if you're looking at sheet A 1.1, up in the area of the residential entrance off of Dorchester Avenue. But ultimately, again, not to speak for the BPDA staff, but I think that urban design felt that a loading dock just was going to have the same problems with trucks pulling in and then having to back out onto Dorchester Avenue. It just wasn't feasible, particularly for loading trucks coming in the morning. The notion is that loading would just be done with a loading zone, a BTD designated loading zone on Dorchester Avenue for quick drop off and
moving day is going to be fun.
And for that as well.
Okay.
Has the general contractor been selected for the project?
I'm not aware, Chris.
Still in the process of that.
Okay. Well, I would urge you to consider community standards as part of that.
Of course.
Any other questions from the board? Bruce? No? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, we'd like to go on our record in support. As the proponents mentioned, this has been through the BPDA process. There is a lot of support for the activation of the street through the restaurant use, and I think people are willing to accept the trade-off of no parking, both because of the proximity to transit and the challenges of the site. Thank you.
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councilor Flink's office, we also would like to go on record in support. As explained, there was a BPDA process and a lot of community organizations were also in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, of the Council at Large, Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support and commend the proponent on the extensive community process in working with neighbors in order to help revitalize the Andrews Square neighborhood.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Joe McEachran, City Councilor Frank Baker's office, we'd like to go on record in support.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Karen Foley, City Councilor Anissa Asabi George's office. I was at the Andrews Square Civic where Chris presented the project at 603 Dorchester Ave. The Civic Association is overwhelmingly in support. They're dying for this project. They think it will revitalize the neighborhood, and they've gone through a lot of work. People have been working very hard at Andrews Square, and they need a break. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
I'm going to make a motion to approve. Jeff, we don't need the, do we need? Yeah, we'll have continued BPDA design review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, size of the units.
I also am in opposition, but motion carries.
Thank you.
Calling the last case for 9:30, calling BOA 832-689, 19 Old Harbor Street. This is renovation of two existing two-family dwellings and extend living space into the basement for Unit 1. The violation is Article 27S-5. It's in the iPod applicability. Name and address for the record, please.
Timothy
Anthony Norton, 61 Telegraph Street, South Boston.
Tell us what you're proposing.
I'm proposing to renovate an existing two-family by adding living space in the basement.
So tell us, what's the floor-to-ceiling height in the basement?
The ceiling height in the basement is approximately 7 feet.
7 feet?
7'4" to halfway, it's like 6'10".
Okay. And what's the use of the basement? What will be in the basement?
In the basement will be 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms.
So okay, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and window wells will be provided?
Excuse me?
Window wells?
I have to add 2 windows. About 85 or 90% of this is above grade.
Okay. Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We'd like to go on record in support. We did hold an on-site abutters meeting. There weren't any objections, and there was some support there. In addition, we haven't received any opposition from neighbors. I think people are happy that the building is remaining a 2-unit and will be activated. Thank you.
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councilor Flink's office, we would also like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Karen Foley, City Council Anissa Asabi George's office, and we support this project. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition? The BRA proviso recommends approval with proviso. Are the mechanicals separated from the units?
Separated, yeah. Well, the utility closets?
Yes. Yeah? Okay. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the BPDA, well, with those provisos, to make sure there's no building code relief for ceiling height and the mechanical separated from the ground floor.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yes, you're all set. We're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll reconvene at 11:15. The Board of Appeal for the Board of Appeal for Tuesday, July 10th is back in session. Let us proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calling the first cases for 10:30. Calling BOA 809-812, 565 Mass Ave. This companion case, BOA 809-813, 565 Mass Ave. This is construction of a new roof deck, the violations Article 9, Section 1. Extension of a non-conforming building. Proposed work will extend existing non-conforming building height. There is also, building code, section 1009.13.1, the roof access, 788th edition, 1009.13.1, in buildings 4 or more stories in height, roof access should be by means of a penthouse. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Beth McDougall with McDougall Architects out of Chelsea, Mass.
Jerry DiPiero, DiPiero Construction out of Boston, Mass.
Tell us what's being proposed.
We're proposing to put a roof deck on the rear section of the building, accessed with a roof hatch, not a head house.
So tell us what is triggering this and how are you responding to this building code relief?
So the building code is requiring the head house, and the Landmarks Commission wants the roof hatch. So we were trying to get some kind of meeting of the mind. So we spoke with the clients, and they would rather have the roof hatch, not the head house, which would, make it, much taller.
How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate.
And
the question comes about, is the access to the deck for the total building or just a restricted unit?
Just for the upper unit, our client, yes.
Okay. So can I have a motion on the building code?
Motion to grant the building code relief requested for the roof hatch.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On the merits of the request for a new roof deck, is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Faisal Sharif with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We did hold an abutters meeting. There was no opposition from the abutters or from the civic group. Thank you.
Isn't it a relief to have an easy roof deck? Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set. Good luck.
Thank you.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 828-021, 51 to 53 Heath Street. Is Heath Street here? John? They're withdrawing? All right. They're not 100% sure, though? Yeah, we're sure. Okay. So I'll make a motion for denial without prejudice on Heath Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Calling next case, calling BOA 836-883, 7 Atherton Street. This is requesting approval to rejection set of plans to propose additional conditioned living space in the basement level of Unit 1 located at 7 Ave. The proposal includes the addition of 2 bedrooms, play space, and roof access from Unit 2. Violation of Article 55, Section 9, the floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Travis Anderson, 100 Warren Street, Roxbury. We are seeking a variance for FAR to add more conditioned living space in the basement level of the homeowner-occupied 2-unit building located in JP. We've had a butters meeting as well as went through the JP.
Please tell us about the violations.
Sure. We're seeking a variance for the FAR. It's actually an existing non-conforming building, so we're adding an additional 900 net square feet of conditioned space in the basement. So it increases the FAR from 1 to 1.4. In the zoning, it's actually a 0.6 FAR ratio, so that's why we're existing non-conforming. It's homeowner occupied. My client and his family are actually living on the second floor while the work would be done on the first floor and basement if approved.
So they anticipate moving to the lower unit and the
Correct.
second unit would still be up
Yep.
for rent, okay?
And it's to add additional 2 bedrooms and playroom in the basement. The basement itself, you can kind of see, I don't know if you have the drawings up there,
What's
but you can see
the
that
floor to ceiling height in the basement? Sorry.
it's 9 feet, actually.
9 feet,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
Drawings are adequate. Is this a single family?
It's a 2-unit.
And the basement use is for which floor?
The basement use would be for the first floor, and we do have an access stair from the first floor down.
First floor, okay.
Yep.
It's an extension of the first floor into the
Correct.
basement.
Correct.
And the second floor remains independent of the
Correct.
basement.
Yep.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. On behalf of Alex Valdez, we'd like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Will Poff Webster from City Councilor Matt O'Malley's office. We'd also like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Karen Foley, Councilor Asabi George's office, and we're supporting this project.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, City Council Elijah Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 797-633, 11 Linden Street. This is 29,000 square foot garage and 7,000 square foot addition to an existing structure. The violations, Article 65, Section 15, a parking garage on the first floor is forbidden. Article 65, Section 15, a parking garage on the second floor is forbidden. Article 65, Section 15, a repair garage is forbidden. Article 65, Section 16, the floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Article 65, Section 16, the rear yard is insufficient. Article 65, Section 21, the parking garage conditional. Article 65, Section 22, the floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Article 65, Section 22, the rear yard is insufficient. And Article 65, Section 41, off-street parking and loading requirements design. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Robert Susi, and I represent J&O Realty Trust, 53 Freeport Street, Dorchester. I'm here today to ask the board's approval on an addition to the property at 11 Linden Street. The plan specifies for a parking garage, as well as an addition to the existing structure. We received all positive feedback from the community process.
Tell us about the parking garage. How many spaces, whatever?
That's actually, I was just going to add to that. Actually, after meeting with the BPDA, the general consensus from Jeff Hampton and everyone else involved in the meeting was that the parking garage aspect of this project should be eliminated at this time.
Okay.
We feel the Glover's Corner rezoning, as well as the redevelopment of this neighborhood, would probably create a better use than a parking garage on Dorchester Avenue. So,
And so tell us about the addition.
sure, it's a 7,132 foot addition. It's 2 floors, and basically the building at this time is more or less an L shape with a corner missing out of it. That's what, we're just trying to finish that off, basically.
Okay. And the use is, continues to be a garage?
Yep, auto repair, yes.
Auto repair.
Yep.
Okay. Now, why are you cited for off-street parking and loading? Do you have enough parking on site for your vehicles?
Yeah, and we actually just acquired, on top of what we have, an additional 15,000 square feet to the opposite side of the building. The addition is actually on the corner, so that's right to the street, but the opposite side, plenty of parking, employees, vehicles, everything. There's no off-street parking.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
Drawings are adequate. Just for the record, I have X'd out the parking garage.
Thank you.
That is not to be done.
We appreciate that, thank you.
And this is a repair garage?
Auto body repair, yes.
Auto body repair.
Yes.
So tell us about the auto body piece of it.
As far as...
Everything is going to be meeting code as far
Yes,
as venting,
everything, yep.
etc.
Everything is up to code. Everything is up to code. Everything's state of the art. You know,
Okay.
we run a tight ship there, so
Good, good.
going to continue that, hopefully.
Okay. Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Choir Pham from Mayor's Office of Neighborhoods and Services. I would like to go on record in support. The proponent did have extensive meeting with the local neighborhood services, Freeport Adams, and they received the approval. And also, we hosted the on-site abutters meeting. Business owner came out. They did have questions, but they have no concerns, and they approved of the project. And they will come back for the garage of the 29,000 square feet later on. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Joe McEachran, City Councilor Frank Baker's office would like to go on record in support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Mr. Hampton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff Hampton, BPDA. We did meet with Mr. Susi, and it was our recommendation. Also, it would have triggered Article 80 because of the addition. I don't think they were aware of that. In absence of a formal board vote, the BPDA would stand in favor of this.
Okay, and this is split between a local industrial and neighborhood shopping.
It is.
Would that be, as far as screening and buffering against, since it's in that boundary zone, do you
Well,
think
it's
appropriate?
right. It's filling a corner is what it is. It's a hole in the ground right now, and I don't know how much screening and buffering would be for a 7,000 square foot addition.
Okay.
So
It goes right to the.
it goes right to the
street.
property line. Yeah.
No, I know exactly what it is. Yeah. Where the ramp is.
Yep.
May I have a motion, please?
A motion to approve with continued, you're gonna need BPDA, right, Jeff? Yeah, with continued BPDA.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set with that proviso.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 831-672, 597 to 605 Center Street. This is to remove the proviso of the previous petitioner on grass-fed and grant the 36A takeout to the use of this business. This is a change of ownership only, with no work being performed and no change to the name. The violations, Article 6, Section 4, other protectional conditions are required. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Anthony Ross, 343 Belgrade Avenue in Rosendale.
Tell us what's being proposed.
What's being proposed here is simply a ownership change on a transfer essentially of a conditional use takeout that was granted 5 years ago to the current licensee owner of the business for the burger shop called Grass Fed on Center Street in Jamaica Plain. So Socrates owns 2 local restaurants and has a good reputation as an operator. And he's proposing taking ownership of this business without making any changes to the name, the menu, the operating hours, strictly an ownership change. We appeared before the Jamaica Pond Association on June 4th, and they voted to support the ownership change and the transfer of the takeout use to the new operator. And we appeared before the Public Safety Committee of the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Council, and they also voted to support the change of ownership.
Businesses, do you own the businesses in Boston?
Yes.
So you're familiar with the take? Where? What are the businesses?
It's called Chilacates,
Oh, okay.
and it's one on Center Street and one on Avon Street.
Okay. Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
Drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Alexandra Valdez, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We would like to echo our strong support from our office as well as the community as a whole. The community is very happy to have Socrates in the neighborhood and as well as taking over Grass-Fed, when we look forward to working with them in the future.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Will Poff-Webster with Boston City Council Matt O'Malley's office. We'd also like to go on record and support the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Council Public Service Committee is in support, and almost everyone in JP loves Socrates. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Karen Foley, Councilor Asabi George's office. We want to go on record in support of this project. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan. On behalf of City Council Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion,
As
please?
a JP resident, I'd like
takeout language?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All second by the second JP resident. Okay. So, motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Great, thank you very much.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 816-05...
Hold on, sorry, my colleague here reminds me I didn't go through due process here. So, there was a motion, there was a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're all set.
Get so excited. Calling BOA 816-057-101 Forbes Street. This is to add dormers on an existing roof, demo chimney up to the second floor level, enclosed floor, refinish attic space, adding new bathroom, new windows. Keep existing, confirming stairs, just refinish. Violation of Article 55, Section 9, the floor area ratio is excessive. Name and address for the record.
Casey Deal, 101 Forbes Street.
Michael Matias, contractor.
Tell us what's being proposed.
Proposing to finish existing third floor attic space into 2 bedrooms and an additional bathroom.
And is this a one or a two family?
This is a 1 family.
This is a single family, so the attic is going to go to 2 bedrooms. How many bedrooms in the building altogether?
There are 4 technically to reasonable size,
Okay.
2 closet size.
And so this is just a dormer, it's no extension into the basement?
No, that is
No,
correct.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
The drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Alex Valdez, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We would also like to echo strong support. We did have a very successful butters meeting, as well as great support from the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Council and Zoning Board.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Will Poff Webster with City Councilman O'Malley's office. We'd also like to go on record in support for the same reasons. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of the Council at Large, Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Karen Foley, Councilor Asabi George's office, would like to go on record of support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval of BPDA design.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
It's
Good luck.
It's 11:35 right now. I'm going to call up the rediscussions. Are there any deferrals or withdrawals for 11:30? Hearing none, we'll go to the next case. Calling BOA 819-288, 97 Green Street. This is to construct a new 3-story rear addition and side deck on an existing 3-family. The violation, Article 55, Section 40, off-street parking is insufficient due to the removal of the garage and no proposed off-street parking indicated. The violation is Article 55, Section 9, floor area ratio is excessive. Article 55, Section 9, the building height is excessive in feet. Article 55, Section 9, the rear yard is insufficient. Article 55, Section 9, the usable open space is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Steve Pettipass, Aesthetic Images, architect for the project. Almost all of the violations that are listed are currently due to the nonconformance of the building. The only violation that we're increasing would be the FAR because we are adding to the building. We are removing the existing garage, and we have approval from Landmarks to do so. And with regards to off-street parking, we actually can fit 3 parking spaces on the site. It was just that
Is that what's required by zoning, is 3 parking spaces?
I believe so, 1 per unit.
Okay. Has this project been before the board in the past?
Oh, no, this is...
No, this is a
Okay,
project.
we've been working this for a year. If it
Okay.
pleases the board, I do have a parking plan if they're interested.
Yes, please. Bob, can you take a glance at that, please? So there are a number of violations. So you're proposing a 3-story rear addition and side decks. Tell us about, it looks like all the rear yard violation is a new violation because of the extension into the rear yard.
No, not at all. The existing first floor, we are actually going on top of an existing first floor rear addition that was put on years ago. So the new construction is going on top of that, and then we're squaring off the building where a chunk of the building is missing.
Okay.
So it's a very small addition on the first floor, and then a larger addition on second and third.
And how large are each unit?
Approximately 1,200 square feet. It's 2 bedroom, 2 baths.
Oh, okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
Drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Will Pop Webster with City Council Madam O'Malley's office. We'd like to go on record in support due to the support of the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Council Zoning Committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Karen Foley, Councilor Asabi George's office, and would like to go on record of support. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of the Council at Large, Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record support.
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, on behalf of Alex Valdez, we'd like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Bob, any opinion on the parking plan?
No, it's fine.
It's fine, okay. May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval with BPDA design review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Calling BOA 817-811, 9 Brom Street. This is an existing parcel and erecting new construction, a single-family dwelling. The violation, Article 67, Section 9, the lot area is insufficient. Article 67, Section 9, the floor area ratio is excessive. Article 67, Section 9, the side yard is insufficient. And Article 67, Section 9, the rear yard is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Gary Martell, I live at 15 Brownson Terrace in Jamaica Plain.
Tell us what's being proposed.
The parcel up on Brahms Street in Rosendale, we had a community meeting in late May. This board reflects basically all the parcels within 300 or 400 feet. Most of them are around 4,000 feet as the board
Gary, which is the parcel?
Right here.
Okay.
So there's a vacant parcel right here, approximately 4,000 feet. Pretty much all the parcels in the neighborhood are approximately 4,000 feet. About 60% of these houses are single-family houses. The other 40% are 2 or 3-family houses. Combine the 2 lots together under the ownership is 2 units as of right could be built. So versus building 2 units as of right and demolishing the existing house that's right here, what we're proposing to do is keep the existing house as a single family, and which is on its own separate lot, and get a variance for this lot here for another single family dwelling.
So that's that particular lot is a vacant lot. It's
Correct.
Separately platted.
Yep.
Okay. Tell us about the violations.
So the
lot area
violation,
makes sense.
the requirement in the 2F 5,000 district in Rosendale is 5,000 square feet are required for a single-family dwelling. Again, the 2 lots combined, which are under the same ownership, are 8,000.
Then just talk about this lot, please.
Yes.
Okay.
So on that lot there, we meet the requirements for the modal setback in the front. There's a side yard violation. Gross square footage violation, it was approximately, you can do 2,000 square feet. It's about 2,100 square feet. Height requirement is met.
Tell us about this side and rear.
So the right side is one violation on the right side, and that is because we're proposing a turning radius to put parking underneath. The lot slopes from front to back approximately about 25 feet. So what we're proposing to do is on this side of the property here, this illustration reflects the existing house and the new house. On this side here, we want to leave enough turning radius to go down that slope and turn underneath. The garage door will face the bottom left side of the foundation, will not face the street. Again, this plan here versus potentially this plan here as of right was presented to the neighborhood in late May, and everyone supported it.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
Drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, would like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition?
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Robert Feeney. I'm here representing my sister Bronwyn Feeney, who is the homeowner at 19 Brahms. She wants me to express her opposition to the plan and feels like any development on this plot should be required to meet the existing zoning requirements. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, my name is Louise Ferguson, and I live directly across the street from the proposed building.
What's your address?
10 Brown Street. And yeah, I am completely opposed to this project because this is it is such a small plot. It's going to involve removing about 5 fully grown trees, like 100-year-old trees. And the city of Boston is now wanting to plant trees, and now we're going to remove that. And it's so small. The parking spaces in the areas is very small. And this is a cut-through street on Brom Street. And with the equipment and the building of this is just going to be a disaster when it comes around us. I'm strongly opposed to it.
Thank you. Give that information and everything else. May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval with BPDA design review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set. Good luck.
Calling the next case, calling BOA 822-014, 36 Hopedale Street. It's Hopedale, okay. This is a confirmed occupancy. It's a single-family dwelling and build a 2-story addition in the rear of the house. Relocate 2 existing parking spaces to the back to accommodate parking requirements. Violations, Article 51, Section 9, the side yard is insufficient. And Article 51, Section 56, the location of the off-street parking in the front yard. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Donald Carroll, attorney, 29 Falkland Street, Brighton. With me to my right is Dennis Gannon, the owner of the property at 36 Hopedale Street.
So tell us what's being proposed.
It's a simple addition to the rear of the existing single-family home.
Okay, so tell us more. How large is it? Is it just...
It's 2-story.
2-story, yeah.
Approximately 550 feet in each floor.
So it's about 1,000 square feet
About 1,000
addition.
square feet addition.
Okay.
We meet the FAR, we're not over our FAR.
So the violations look like they're excessive FAR. Front yard sounds like it's existing, but the rear and side yards looks like you're extending the violation.
And the FAR is not in violation. We're 0.48 and we're allowed 0.5.
Okay.
The rear yard setback, we're at 36.5. We're required to stay below 35.
Okay.
The side yard setback is in pre-existing condition. We are extending that pre-existing condition, but we are maintaining an 8.5-foot setback for the addition. We're required to keep a 5-foot setback.
And so...
And between the two properties the property next door, the abutter's property and our property, there's about 18 feet.
And this will remain a single-family dwelling with some level of independent living. How are
Yes.
the plans, Mr. Pizzati?
Your drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Warren O'Reilly, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We held an abutters meeting on May 10th. 22 people were in attendance, all local residents, all life. Some of them have lived as long as these guys have on the street. So you have support from them, support from the Olson Civic Association, and based on that, we'd like to go on record in full support. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Daniel Polanco, on behalf of Councilor Mark Siomo, would like to also go on record in support. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of this council, Michael Flaherty, councilor to go on record in support.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Annabelle Gomes from the Brighton Alston Improvement Association, we'd like to go on record in support.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Tony Disadoro, representing the Alston Civic Association, would like to go on record in support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval, BPDA design review. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Calling the last case for 10:30, calling BOA 836-037, 70 Leo Birmingham Parkway. This is construction of a new 79 dwelling units for sale over 2 levels of a subterranean parking, 4 floors of type VA or other levels of type 1A construction. The violations, Article 29, Section 8. This is in the G-Pod enforcement. Article 51, Section 8, a multifamily dwelling is forbidden in a 3F 4000. Article 51, Section 9, the lot area for additional dwelling units is insufficient in 3F 4000. Article 51, Section 9, the floor to area ratio is excessive. Article 51, Section 9, the height is excessive. Article 51, Section 9, the usable open space is insufficient. Article 51, Section 9, the side yard is insufficient. Article 51, Section 16, the multifamily dwelling on the first floor is conditional. Article 51, Section 16, a multifamily dwelling on the second floor above is conditional. Article 51, Section 17, the floor to area ratio is excessive. Article 51, Section 17, the height is excessive. And Article 51, Section 17, the front yard is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Ms. Secretary, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Joe Hanley, McDermott, Quilty & Miller, 28 State Street in Boston. With me is the proponent, principal, Patrick Maloney. Also with me setting up boards is Gary Hendren, who is the project architect. Just briefly for an overview, I passed out presentation materials for you to support our overview and presentation with more detail. You'll see the project site in its context and some of the unique property conditions which we would argue support the variance and the conditional use requests, as well as our memorandum of the variance and conditional use compliances. I also have, for the record, the BPDA Article 80 Board Memorandum approving this project through Article 80 Large Project Review, as well as the BCDC's approval and numerous letters of support.
So
just to give you
let's get into the meat
quick,
of the matter here.
quick overview of the site. It's almost a half acre, very exciting location at just steps away from the new Boston Landing. Significant investment in rapid transit in the area, as well as in retail. So we're about a 5 to 10 minute walk from there. This is an underutilized site, most of which in zoning is in the community commercial. A very small portion of it, you heard this being read into the record, about 2,600 square feet is in the 3F 5000, and so that generates two sets of refusals. We're bounded by Lincoln Street, which is a one-way going west. Leo Birmingham at the front, and a small street called Centola. At the back is the City of Boston's Portsmouth Playground, which this development through the Article 80 process is becoming a steward of and supporting. This is a home ownership condominium proposal, which is pretty exciting, one of the first of its kind in North Brighton. 79 units with 78 parking spaces, and you'll see in the materials provided that we had a very extensive community outreach process over the last year. We did 2 of our own initial abutter meetings before even starting the official process, 2 meetings with the BAIA, which resulted in their support, courtesy meetings with the ACA, as we're in Brighton.
So let's just go through the violations.
Yes.
Okay? We'll get an understanding of the process from the community and from the mayor's office.
Yes.
I'd like you to use your expertise here on speaking to the violations.
Yep. First off, what we're not requiring, I think, is important as I detail what we are requiring. Again, 88% of the site is in the CC, Community Commercial 1, and so we are complying with the rear yard off Portsmouth Playground, as well as the side yard closest to one of our most direct abutters who we've been working with. What we do need relief from is the use with respect to the multifamily use in that small portion of the site, which is a 3F 5000. The minimum lot area as well. The FAR for the project is 3.6. The 2 zoning districts, the CC is a 1 required, and the 3F is a 0.8, but again, that's a very small portion of the combined site. The 2 uses that are there now, one is a very busy bar use in the 3F 5000, so we're replacing a non-conforming use with something much more quieter, and the other is a 2-story office building.
The height
I'm sorry?
Tell us about the height.
So
and
the height, the 35-foot height requirement, thanks for asking that question. I think this supports the variances too. We are 6 stories on Leo Birmingham, which is, from a context standpoint, we work really hard with.
WGBH is right across the street,
Yes,
so kind of
and
matching that.
530 Western Ave.
Yeah.
As we go back to the site and we respect the required rear yard, we step down to 2.5 stories, which is actually less than the 35 at that point, and then the building steps up and presents its mass on Leo Birmingham, where we'd suggest it belongs.
Okay.
So that highest point is 76 feet, is the tallest part of the front of the building. Again, going back to 2.5 at the rear.
And you're not providing any commercial use because.
Correct.
That's
So
okay.
a big part of this, and you've seen some cases come to you, is investing in sidewalk, streetscape connectivity to support the Market Street Business District and Boston Landing. Right now, it's not as walkable as it could be, and we had a lot of conversations with the community and through Article 80 about parking, and what you're seeing actually represents an increase in on-site parking. We're almost 1-to-1, 78 spaces for 79 units, and if we were to introduce retail, that would certainly frustrate the parking and the traffic.
It's a good idea to have a positive anchor there of residential use.
The other thing I would just say quickly on the zoning, as you asked, the front yard is 7 is required in the CC1, which we're at, 20 feet in the 3F, but with the combination of the lots, we need relief for that, as well as the open space is pretty interesting. Again, 88% of the site is in the CC1, 50 square feet per is required. We're at 144, but we're deficient in that small sliver that's being combined. So there are a lot of variables here that sort of come into play and I think justify the relief.
And tell us about the units that are being proposed, their sizes, and how many affordables.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Gary to walk you through that. So there are 10 of the 79. Again, these are all home ownership, which is a pretty big impact. And, you know, Brighton has a disproportionate amount of rental to home ownership, but we'll have 10 affordables, and those are, of course, deed restricted as home ownership as well. And Gary can give you the breakdown of square footage and bedrooms. They're fairly large units.
Yeah, actually, our units are larger than average and much larger than what's required by zoning. Our studios are 685 square feet. Our 1-bedrooms are 865 square feet, and our average 2-bedroom is 1,222 square feet. The breakdown goes as follows. There are 8 studios, there are 48 1-bedrooms, and 23 2-bedroom units.
I'm sorry, 8 studios.
48 1-bedroom and 23 2-bedroom.
And these are 2 bedrooms plus, or just straight 2 bedrooms?
Most of them are, they're just straight 2 bedrooms, but they are generous and they have large master suites.
Okay. And there's no roof deck proposed on this?
There are roof decks proposed. On the top, on the 6th floor, each unit does have a roof deck. Okay. And it shows up, that's one of the reasons we substituted some drawings, because that does show the roof decks. It also shows the expanded parking. When we went for denial, we only had 70 parking spaces, and now we're up to 78 residential parking spaces, 2 guest parking spaces, plus 2 service parking spaces.
So these decks are only accessible to those units. They're not accessible to the entire building.
Right, but as the building steps back away from the park, we do have a community deck at the 4th floor, which is quite large, and we have a couple of other private roof terraces.
If you look at in your materials, there's a landscape plan that shows pretty robust, usable open space programming. It has the outdoor patio as well as some of the rear terraces that are sort of buffered and set back as well. We also have a little dog run area that we've worked to further buffer with one of our neighbors. That's something that Parks wanted to see so that not all of the dogs would be impacting the park.
Plans, Mr. Bazzani.
Drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board?
Are the parking places restricted
mean, assigned to the units?
Residential are down in 2 levels of garage under the building, and they are assigned.
Yeah, so they'll be assigned to the units, and then we added, of the parking that we added that was new, and this was part of the process, I think 8 of the parking spaces are visitor overflow and then service spaces too, so let's say.
2 visitors, 2 overflows, and then the balance are residential.
Correct. Yep.
And as you described the breakdown of units, the bulk of them were 1 bedroom, correct?
59% are 1 bedrooms.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, who do you anticipate marketing this to?
I'm sorry?
What's the audience?
So they're actually, the square footage, right, as you know, with condos versus rentals, the price per square foot challenge is if they're too big, and if you're worried about so-called gentrification, you might have some impacts as to how much the per unit cost is going to be. So what we're trying to do is empty nesters, folks that, there's some competition, but we're kind of the first out of the gate. Some of the younger working class in the neighborhood, which aren't all new people, a lot of them are folks who grew up in Brighton and want to stay and want to work at Boston Landing, and we think that we're going to be a superior product to that. And we work pretty hard with the community on this. If you look at the plans, we have a lot of space inside the unit, lounges, the dog walk, other things that we think can appeal to people rather than just staying inside your unit, right? So the marketing is you're buying into a great neighborhood that has now even greater amenities with Boston Landing and the transit, but also the businesses in the area. And also the park helps to offset that. It means folks come in and say, we want to do condos, but we think that people look at that and say, this is a great place to live, and it has this great park that's here, it has the amenities, and has some space that we can work with.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here?
I just actually, of the affordable, could you tell me what the breakdown is of the affordable units though? Are they all studios? Are they 1 bedroom?
No, it's commensurate with the median of the building in the board memo. Here you go. Yeah. Yeah, so in your board memo, we have 2 bedroom that's about 10,061 square feet, a 1 bedroom that's around 700, another 2 bedroom on the second floor that's around 1,100, another 2 bedroom. So there's only actually 1 studio. Of the 10, there's only 1 studio. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
5 ones and 1 studio. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Warren O'Reilly, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This was vetted through the Article 80 process, and on that note, I'd like to go on record in full support. There was multiple meetings, public and IEG, so at that time, thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Daniel Polanco, on behalf of Councilor Mark Siomo, also like to go on record in support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, fellow members of the board, my name is Kevin Cleary. I'm a resident of 7 South Waverly Street, which is a few streets down from this project. I would like to go on record in support of this project. Right now, a little insight as a resident, it's a very poorly lit corner. There's a bar room there, not very pedestrian friendly, and I think the upside to this project outweighs any negatives. It's going to make it better lit. It's going to make it aesthetically more appealing for people who are coming into Boston from like neighboring areas like Watertown. So for that reason, I'd want to go on in support. I'm also a real estate broker. I own a pretty successful real estate firm in that area. There's definitely a demand for housing like this. We see a lot of people leaving the Allston-Brighton market because we don't have enough condos for sale. Inventory is very low, so there's definitely a need for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah Cleary. I'm a resident of the neighborhood, and I'd like to go on record in support of the project.
What's your address?
7 South Waverly.
Good, thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Scottberg. I'm a resident of Brighton at 116 Tremont Street. I'd like to go on the record in support of this project.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Annabelle Gomes from the Brighton Allston Improvement Association. We'd like to go on record in support.
Thank you. Minor?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Minor Perez, representing the Carpenters Union on behalf of hundreds of union carpenters that live and work throughout the city of Boston. I'd like to go on record of support.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Tony Disadoro representing the Austin Civic Association. Like to inform you that it was another close vote, so opposition to this project was minimal. In fairness to them, the issues that they raised was the usual height and density, their concerns about traffic entering off of Birmingham Parkway and exiting on Lincoln Street. There was some concerns about a direct abutter, and the fact that we would have liked to have seen a much higher deed-restricted owner occupancy rate. The proponents have committed to a 51% owner occupancy rate, and we would have liked to have seen that a little higher. On the plus side, the people who approved the project were very encouraged by the home ownership opportunity, and the unit mix and sizes of the unit was very positive as well.
I'm Daniel Wilson, an attorney here in Boston at 12 Marshall Street, representing the Logan family of direct abutter.
What is their address?
Their address is 14R Lincoln Street. And the Logan family has owned their house there. It's a modest two-story house since the 40s. They're direct abutters, as I stated. Mr. and Mrs. Logan, their two children, and Mrs. Logan's mother live there. This development would completely overwhelm their property. It is exactly the type of development which is not permitted or not encouraged, or it's a type of development which zoning is supposed to protect them from, and we urge you not to grant these variances. I have not heard anything that indicates why there's something unique about the parcel they cannot make reasonable use with a conforming building, or why they are asking for the minimum variance that would be necessary in order to permit them to make a reasonable use of their property. At over 70 feet, it's more than twice the allowed height. The biggest issue is the FAR and the density. It's entirely too dense. This neighborhood is zoned differently. It is not a downtown neighborhood. It is not subject to this kind of density. And the FAR at 3.6 is more than 3 times the allowed FAR of 1 for the commercial part, and is exactly 4 times the permissible FAR for the residential zoned part of this. So that means too much noise, too many cars, too many people. These people will be on terraces directly overlooking my client's property, which would take away from their enjoyment of their property, their deck, their living quarters, etc.
So you're representing the 14R is owner occupied?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
And it's been in the family since the 40s.
Okay, thank you. Your name and address, please?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and the members of the board. My name is Eva Logan. I'm the owner of the 14 rear. I just want to put face to the statement of my attorney. Actually would like to ask the board of a little bit closer examine of this project. This will impact our lives dramatically, as this project will be technically touching my deck 6 feet away from my house. And I have a mother who lives with me who is 75 years old, who is battling lung cancer. I have no idea how we will be living through the constructions, how we will be trying to even cope with the fact that there will be 78 units, all of these people living among us, this humongous, gigantic building, trying to take our light, trying to take our air. I can't even imagine how this will be,
thank you.
What kind of quality of life we will have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ehrlich, did you have a question?
Yeah, just Mr. Disadora raised the issue of deed restriction. Obviously, in these kind of projects, there's a danger of absentee investors buying up the condos and then renting them. Can you explain how this works with what was discussed with the neighborhood?
Yeah. So the first piece, and we kind of articulated the location and the design of the condo. Not all condo projects are the same. And if you've been in an investor building, they might look different in amenities, in design, in square footage. And so our first task when we worked with the neighbors was to say, give us a chance to really program this in a superior way that will appeal to owner occupants. Then we'll have a discussion about the restricting of the home ownership. We went back and through the BAIA meeting, and as a result, they voted to support this. We agreed to a restriction of 51% or greater. So 51% of owner occupancy. Basically, you cannot have leases in excess of 49% of the units once it's sold out. And so that's consistent with Fannie and Freddie and anyone who wants to develop a condo building and they want it to be owner occupancy. That's the standard level, and that's something that, you know, it was, truth be told, a model discussion. Hasn't really been had. There are some different ideas that maybe you could do more or less, but we think we're doing our part, and we actually also think that we'll be far in excess of that. But again, that's the floor and a protection that we carved out with the support of the neighborhood group.
In perpetuity, that's not a fixed period of time.
Yeah, well, so it's a restriction in the condo docs, and as you know, a condo doc, I think it's 70% of the owners in order to amend. So once you're leased, once you're sold up, especially when you have a condo association of 79 owners versus a 3-family, you'd have to get all of their banks and lenders to say, are we okay to amend these condo docs? I mean, a lot of this is, you know, first impression. And maybe I'll be back with something that has 70% for the next development, but also we want it to be feasible and financeable from the capital market standpoint to get off the ground, and we are sort of trailblazing a little bit. I know you're seeing some condominiums come forward in Brighton, but there's still a massive need.
Truly, it's mostly rentals. We have a very small percentage that are home ownership.
Yeah, we worked with...
and that are reasonable size, too.
Yeah. We worked with Charles Gate Realty as our marketing consultants. We brought them on early, and they had worked with 1650 Com Ave and a few others that not us, that the neighborhood has considered to be sort of the gold standard, if you will, for owner occupancy in condos. And so we really, if you look at the plans, focused on how do we make the place and the building and the program, and then the restriction as well.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because the problem is a serious problem with that with the investors, as you know. And even though it's the for sale unit, it ends up undercutting the goal of stable long-term owner occupants, because they just turn around and flip them.
The idea is, so let's say by restriction, which we willingly agreed to, you have a majority of the units that are owner occupied. Then you're living there, and having lived in the city in a condo building, you then start to say, hey, we want this to be an owner.
You start putting down the roots and you start defending your space.
So it kind of has to happen organically, but we were happy to agree to that protection, and you know, we're looking forward to seeing it play out. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary. With respect to your butter, have there been some conversations with them in order to help mitigate some of the concerns
Yes,
that they raised
so I'm really glad to hear that Mr. Wilson is working with the Logans. They have, we fully appreciate their concerns. We've been working together. We've had a site meeting with them. Mr. Maloney had 2 meetings in person. Ms. Logan attended virtually all of the community meetings. On June 8th, we submitted a draft mitigation program in ways to buffer and also grant by easement some area to expand her own very narrow side yard. And so we haven't heard back, but
that's a side conversation.
But the question is, we don't take this lightly, and yes, we can work together. It's a tough situation. The building, her building, is an existing nonconformity. It's right at the lot line. We're very respectful. With respect to the zoning, for the record, you know, you have our memo of compliance. I will say that, again, the combined property is in 2 zoning districts. Where we intersect with Ms. Logan's property, it is the CC1. It is not the 3F5000. We are complying with the rear yard. We are complying with the side yard. So there's an issue of standing that.
So hold on. So Mr. Maloney, you're going to be in charge when the construction takes place, because I know Mr. Hanley is, will pass the baton more fully to you. So you have a construction plan in place, or will have a construction plan in place, so that, people can contact somebody if there's an issue with anything going on. Excellent. Now that we have this information, may I have a motion, please?
I'm going to make a motion to approve with continued BPDA design review.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So you're all set
Thank
with
you.
that proviso.
I'm going to go in for the first rediscussion. BOA 767-363, 238 Webster Street. This is to erect a new multi-unit building, 15 units and 10 underground parking spaces, garage. The violation is Article 53, Section 8, a multifamily dwelling is forbidden. Article 53, Section 9, the lot area for additional dwelling units is insufficient. Article 53, Section 9, the floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Article 53, Section 9, the height is excessive. Article 53, Section 9, the usable open space is insufficient. Article 53, Section 9, the front yard is insufficient. And Article 53, Section 9, the rear yard is insufficient. And Article 53, Section 56, off-street parking is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano with an address of 15 Broad Street. I'm here with the architect Arthur Chu on the project at 238 Webster Street, and the owner, Stephanie Marauder, and her family, the Grossman family. Just one point of clarification. We are here seeking zoning relief for a project at 238 Webster Street. We have modified this project. It is now, we're seeking to take down, raise the existing building to erect a 4-story building with 9 residential condominium units and 8 interior parking
So
spaces.
now it's, instead of the 15 family, it's 9 family?
9 units
And how many parking?
with 8 interior and 4 exterior parking spaces. So I believe when it was first read, it was an underground parking proposal. This would all be at grade.
And does that change any of your violations?
It modified a number of the violations, which I will go through, Madam Chair. This particular zoning district is a 3F 2000. This particular lot is an L-shaped lot. It's unique in the fact that it's 6,766 square feet, making it one of the larger lots in the area. And I do provide a picture on the first page and a site plan as you go forward a few pages down. The layout of this particular building, all will be 2-bedroom units, and they will be homeowner occupied as well. The family will be occupying 2 of the units as well. The first floor will have 8.
And what's the average size?
So on the first unit is 958 square feet. That's a bottom floor, first floor unit. All of the others are roughly 1,029 to 1,092. So they're all similar in size.
Is there a roof deck being proposed?
There is not. So there is an elevator in the building. We actually modified and took there was a large sort of bump out on top for the elevator shaft, which we removed. We actually worked diligently on modifying and changing this project, which I want to point out, during the course of almost a year period. Just to go over some of those modifications. And this was all based on feedback from both the JPNA, Jeffries Point Neighborhood Association, as well as abutters who have come to our abutters meetings. We redesigned the building, the whole outside and exterior, to fit the context of the Jeffries Point neighborhood, giving it, mansard roof, bay windows, removing the head house, and eliminating one of the garage doors. Our unit count has gone from 14 units to 9 units. 4th floor has been reduced. We actually took the left side setback of the rear of the building 25 feet off the left side based on the abutters' concerns.
But tell us then, what the violations are currently against the zoning from this current set of plans.
Okay, so use, obviously, we're seeking a use variance. So it's a 3-family zone. We're proposing 9 units. FAR, what's allowable in this area is 1. we're at 1.7, so pretty close. Our additional lot area per dwelling unit, we would be required to have 6. We have 4,766. Height, although we're at 4 stories and 40 feet, I have included in the second page all of the 4-story buildings just in around that area, so we're no high.
Probably 3.5.
It's 3 stories, 35 feet, which is allowable under the code. Our rear setback, which we have worked on, is 40 is required, and we're at 12 feet 3 inches in the rear. But again, this is a unique shaped lot, so that whole left portion is now open on the current plan. We meet our side setback, so 2.6 is required. We're at 3'1" and 3 foot 3. Our open space, which is 300 square feet per dwelling unit, we're at 177 per dwelling unit, and 15 spaces will be required for parking, we're at 8, which I have to point out is almost close to a 1.1, and in this area that's can be tough to come by. There's not a lot of parking, so we really work to get that in, but also make modifications, so if we cut back in the rear, we would have more parking in the back as well.
Is this an elevator building?
Yes.
It is?
Oh, no, no, I'm sorry. It was originally, it's been removed now. I'm sorry.
So-
The first floor unit is accessible on the ground level.
Okay.
I also want to point out, we have submitted 78 support letters as part of our package that we've given you. And in our last page, because although we worked with the abutters quite diligently, and we have the support and non-opposition of all of our rear abutters on the map. We have the support of our left abutters. You may hear some concern about context in the area. The last page we provided is just an FAR chart of the surrounding building showing that we either are below or match what's surrounding in that area. And I can pause now for any questions that the board may have.
How are the plans was designed?
The drawings are adequate. Arthur, is that a full set of new plans?
And how is the parking proposed to work?
So there is a garage door on the left side of the building, entrance door. You would enter that, and there'd be the parking plan, which is actually on A-1.1. Shows as you enter the driveway, garage door, there are 4 spots, interior spots on the right, and then another 4 spots exposed on the left-hand side. So 4 of the spots in the exterior are exposed, the other 4 are interiors.
And they'd be dedicated to each unit?
They would be dedicated for each unit.
Okay. And any screening and buffering between the parking and the abutters proposed?
So we said we'd put all new fencing in the rear, and like I had mentioned, all of our rear abutters were happy with the pull-ins and the cutback in the left-hand quadrant.
Since you're the designer on a number of these projects, can you, in the future, look at a more permeable way to have those garage doors so that they're not that solid feel to it, that it feels more open and accessible to pedestrians? Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
The drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Jesus Garcia with the Office of Neighborhood Services. We start the process, the community process in November 2017. We have 2 abutters meetings for this project, and also it was presented in front of the association. The vote from the association, it was in opposition. However, based on the changes of the initial proposal and the reduction of the project and the 78 letters in support, we would like to speak on record in support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, on behalf of the Council Lodge, Michael Flaherty, Council to go on record in support.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Karen Foley, Councilor Sabi George's office, would like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, my name is Patricia Sartori. I am a lifelong resident of Webster Street in East Boston and a homeowner of 228 Webster Street for over 52 years. I am here in support of the project at 238 Webster Street. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Mary Cole of 251 Webster Street, speaking on behalf of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. This project was voted on by the JP&A at our May 14th meeting The voting was based on the presenter's assurance that the project now being proposed is for 9 units with 8 parking spaces. The vote was 10 in favor and 37 against. Those who voted for the project felt that it was in line with other recently approved projects and appreciated the reduction in size from the original proposal of 15 units to the current proposal of 9 units. Those opposing the project felt that it would be out of character with the existing neighborhood of 1, 2, and 3 family homes, that it would have a negative impact on abutting properties, blocking views and casting shadows on abutting properties. This is a special concern for properties to the rear and east side of the property because of the planned rear setback on that far corner. Concern was expressed regarding the lack of planning for garbage bin storage and pickup. The proposed garage, curb cut, and garage door on a street where garages are almost non-existent created concern about noise and erosion of the pedestrian environment.
If you could, instead of reading the letter to me, please submit it into the record. But can you just highlight the points then? So you have issues with the parking, the trash. Just bullet point it for me, please.
So the bullet point is the impact on the directly abutting properties, especially those properties. There are actually 2 properties directly abutting as you look from the street to the right, and I believe those parties will speak. There was also concern, they were asked where the trash bins would go and how would they get them to the street, and there wasn't an answer for that at the time they presented to us. And there was also a lot of concern about the garage door, the noise it might make going up and down, and also the erosion of the pedestrian environment.
Okay, thank you. Name and address, please.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Genchis. I live at 244 Rear Webster Street. I sent some information to you yesterday, but I'd like to give you copies.
Will you please highlight your concerns?
Absolutely. I'm a direct abutter. I live at 244 Rear, which if you look at the site plan is that tiny little house behind 244. So as you can see from the site plan, this would negatively affect my property significantly. I'm a gardener, I grow tomatoes, I grow flowers, so are my neighbors on Sumner Street. None of us would have enough sunlight to maintain our gardens. I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to any development on this site, but I think that development needs to balance the needs of the developers with the needs of the neighbors. I'm also an architect, so personally, in my 18 years of practice in this city, I've developed over 2,000 units of housing developed or renovated. So I get it. There's a housing crisis, and we need zoning variances.
Please, just talk to this project.
Right, so I am. So here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have tried to work with them. I came to them in March along with my abutters. We said the rear yard setback was a non-negotiable for us. We presented this 7-unit scheme, and they told us they weren't willing to work with us. They deferred in May. We came back again. They said they were not willing to work with us. They were not willing to reduce any further. Now, there is no hardship here, right? If you look at those 3 criteria that the zoning code requires, none of those apply in this case. We've consulted an attorney, and yes, we would appeal if this was approved, but we don't want to go that route. We want to work with them. We would like for them to agree to a 7-unit project, 1-to-1 parking, full compliant rear yard setback. But they have not been willing to even discuss this reduction with us.
I just have a question. So you're a rear address?
Yes.
Yeah. So was that a former garage, or was it a carriage house?
No,
what was it?
My understanding is it has always been a house.
Yeah.
It was built in the early 1800s, and so if you look at the old maps, it has been there, and sort of the neighborhood grew up around it. But it has always been a home.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Farmer. I'm a direct abutter at 214 Webster Street, exactly across the street from this particular parcel. I understand that they have a right to build, and I completely support that. However, this is the most expensive street in East Boston, and I believe that the growth of the project that we have before us today would negatively affect everyone who surrounds it. I understand that they want to go a little bigger than the standard 3-family, and I think going to 7 units is completely reasonable, especially as they would match the number of parking spaces. But the size of the building and the design as it currently exists is, I don't feel in keeping with the neighborhood nor acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor, we didn't see you in the back there.
Oh, no problem. So my name's Lydia Edwards. I'm city councilor for East Boston, Charleston, and North End. There's been a huge amount of back and forth on this particular project, a majority of which was in opposition. I think we had a petition of 105 people signed in opposition, along with a vote that you just heard, 37-10, and many, many emails in opposition. That being said, there were 78 letters in support, and one of the things that we do like about it is that it's owner-occupied. It seems like it's a real dispute amongst neighbors, and so while I'm standing with the neighborhood association in opposition, I do still hope this is the beginning of a conversation. I do think we can ultimately, hopefully, resolve this.
My name is Brittany Thomas. I'm a tenant at 236 Webster Street, which is the house on the left of the project. And I'd also like to voice my opposition, echoing some of the things that have already been said about the scope of the project, and sort of it being a part of a large idea that to increase density we can lessen displacement, but this particular project I believe is too large for the location. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, my name is Jennifer Harris, and I'm at 242 Webster Street, so I directly abut it, 238 on the right. Currently, as my house stands right now, I have a backyard, and there, with no setback, which my understanding with the plans is supposed to be 3-foot setback from the rear, not 12.4, which they said. I'm not sure if they've changed the plans, but that's what they brought to the JP&A board meeting. At the JP&A board meeting, when they brought this plan, it was not 15 units, it was not 14 units, it was 9 units. It's what you're seeing right now. So they've gone down, but they brought that to the JP&A board meeting on May 22nd, which was turned down 37-10. After that, I went around the neighborhood and talked to many of our abutters, which in the 300-foot radius, and I was able to, and I only did this in a weekend, I was able to get 105 signatures. 40 of those were abutters, which is within the abutters scope.
And any sense of how many of those were tenants versus homeowners?
Many were tenants, yes.
Many were
yes, because I've lived in the neighborhood for 11 years. I plan to own the home for the rest of my life. I don't plan on moving. So I know many of the neighbors. I also want to say, we are okay with going with the 7 units. The 4 feet, that is another variance that we would be able to give to them. The rear setback is really where our contention is, and also the 7 units. Right now, there are 3 units there. So if we go from 3 to 9, that is, possibly, 2 people have to own it because that's how it's going to work, $700,000 each. So, 18 people now living next door to me. Everybody's probably going to want a dog, all of the trash, 7.
All those neighborhood issues.
Yeah, but 7 units we were totally fine with, and the rear yard setback, so it does not take away my air and my light, and the safety issue too for Sharon in the back. There's, it's going to be tough to get to her. She's got a daughter. If there's a fire, who knows what's going to happen. But the life safety thing is also on my mind. And the 8 variances. This is my first opportunity to be here with you all to discuss this. It's been very interesting, and I appreciate your time, and I hope that you take our concerns to heart, and also know that we are willing to work with them. And we have been trying to reach out to them many, many times. Lydia, on our behalf, has tried to reach out to the owner, Mario. I've even sort of offered them a lower than, a median. No response whatsoever at all. I mean, I'm still friendly with them. We still wave, we still say, or we say hi. Okay. So there's nothing like that. But
you're still cordial. That's
still
good.
cordial. Yeah,
that's a good start.
This is something different.
Okay.
But and we're ready to talk about something that we can both live. We can all live with. And Sharon especially. Thank you so much.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, my name is Ron Stoya. I'm at 183 Webster Street. I'm a little bit down the street. Just a couple of points, and I'll be very brief. First of all, this is a very narrow area of Webster Street, and it takes a turn like not an elbow kind of turn, and it's a place that's all jammed up. And I just think of all these units here with all the cars moving in and out. It's just going to make it more jammed up. The other thing is the comparison of the buildings that have been submitted to you. I noticed, mine's one of them. They're buildings that were built about 150 years ago, a little bit high. They talk about, well, they're almost, this building is not quite as high as some of the other buildings. These buildings were built long before zoning, 1850 and the late 1800s. So I don't think the comparison is apt, but thank you.
Thank you. So where do I begin? I would like you to respond on behalf of the owner on the level of communication with the abutters and what the anticipated level of communication and outreach is expected to be?
So we have been very open and willing to work with the abutters, and we have. There's actually been 3 abutter meetings, and what you had heard from one of the rear abutters to the side, house behind another house.
The 244 rear,
Correct. Did not show up for any of those meetings. We're actually told she couldn't make any of the meetings. So we also had 3 meetings before the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association, as well as individual meetings as we went along. Up until this week, we have been, my office and the developer has been emailing, and what we've been told is if we're not willing to go down to 7 units, they're not willing to sit down with us and meet. So we were more than happy up until yesterday to meet with them, but that was what we were told. So unfortunately, we've made a number of modifications, cutting in that whole rear, reducing units, changing the landscape, changing the front of the building and the design. We just can't go to 7. That doesn't mean we weren't willing to work with them. So as you can see, we've built support as we've modified this project. The opposition comes on that right-hand side. The other unfortunate piece to this is that having a house behind another house makes it difficult for any developer.
So remember that next time anybody comes in with a rear.
I understand
rear
that, I'm sure.
address here.
But so we've tried to work and modify this project to give as much air in the back, light. We've shown a shadow study that would have minimal impacts. That's why we have the support of the abutters in the rear. If we were to be approved, we would be willing to work with the abutters, everyone in this room, moving forward on design and construction.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? No more questions? May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve with continued BPDA design review and a strict word to Counselor and his development team to make sure that he works closely with this neighborhood and these abutters.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That proviso.
Calling BOA 812-233, 15 to 17 Swallow Street. This is installing 2 new roof decks, accessed on each dwelling unit in the building. Is Swallow Street here? Swallow Street not here? Okay. Calling the next case, calling BOA 779-357, 29 to 31 Ward Street. This is to erect a new 4-story, 9-unit residential building with 10 parking spaces at grade, building to contain 3 one-bedroom units, 6 two-bedroom units, existing structure to be raised. Violation Article 27S, Section 5, it's in the South Boston applicability, iPod. Article 68, Section 33, off-street parking is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Attorney Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller, 28 State Street, Suite 802 here in Boston. With me to my right is Ed Doherty, property developer and appellant. To my far right is David O'Sullivan of O'Sullivan Architects. Briefly, this project has been in front of the board before. This was previously an iPod only zoning compliant project. But in the spirit of the iPod, we've engaged in many constructive discussions with the abutters as well as the Andrew Square Civic Association over the past few months. We've submitted a letter of support now from the Andrew Square Civic Association.
Can we just go directly to, this is for 2 new roof decks?
No, that was Swallow Street.
I'm sorry.
Swallow Street didn't show up.
So we're, right, so this is.
We're on Ward Street.
Okay.
And on the subject of roof decks,
Yes,
the
sorry.
plans that were originally proposed did have a roof deck, but we're happy to say that in the discussion with the neighborhood, we've now removed that proposed roof deck. We've also removed several balconies at the front of the property in order to revise the project more in keeping with the discussions that we've had with the neighbors and the Andrew Square Civic Association.
Is this an elevator building?
Yes.
So it's all accessible. Tell us how the parking is supposed to work. That is your violation?
Yes, ma'am.
Besides
So,
the iPod?
yes, originally the project was zoning compliant for parking, but what we heard from the neighborhood group was they preferred the open space not be on the roof and be at grade. And the way we accomplished that was by removing 2 parking spaces from the rear of the site, pulling the parking in off the rear, and making that accessible open space for the residents.
If I'm looking looking at sheet 1 of 3, it's that 20-foot minimum setback in the rear?
Yes. Yeah, if you look at the
How many square feet is that?
the little diagram there, it's actually about 24 by about 30. So it's about 600 square, somewhere between 500 and 600 square feet in the back at grade.
So originally, we had 2 parking spots there, and what we've heard from the neighborhood was, can you take those parking spots away? We're okay with you needing a parking variance, right? Because of the location, because of the fact that it's 9 units, we still are proposing 10 parking spaces. It's still over a 1-to-1 parking ratio, and we're within less than a 5-minute walk to Andrews Square T. So the trade-off and the discussion with the neighbors was, get rid of the roof deck, move the open space to the at grade, get rid of 2 spaces, and that's where we are today, and that was resulted in that support letter from the neighborhood group.
And tell us how this, so you have everything resolved with the right-of-way to access the parking?
Yes, there's an existing passageway right away that's been in existence for 100 years.
And that will remain.
We're actually widening it out onto our side a little bit because it's a little bit narrow.
Okay. How are the plans, Mr. Bazzani?
Your drawings are adequate.
Any questions from the board? Is anybody?
The number of parking spaces again is how many?
It's
10 spaces for 6 units.
For 9
units, excuse me. 10 spaces for 9 units.
I can see space 9, but I can't find space.
Space 10 is in the front. It's a compact space just off the front of the garage. It's actually 8 feet at its narrowest. It's 20 feet wide. But because it's not a full 9 feet for the whole width, it's actually wider. It's actually 10 feet at the outside edge and then narrows down to 8 at the back.
Okay. I'm looking at drawing 1 of 3.
Yeah, so on the ground floor plan, as you come in the driveway, just to the left is the space 10. It's under the street, right along the front of at the very front of the building.
It's before the stairway, Mr. Bazzani, if you look very close to the front of the street.
It's as if it's in the garage. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we basically, one of the other issues they had was trash, so we put an enclosed trash room there, right off the driveway.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Ellison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, we would like to go on record in support. The proponent had initially proposed a building that was compliant with Article 68 but needed iPod relief. The Civic Association and the neighbors there asked them to make changes, specifically around the roof decks and some other issues. After working with the community, they do have a plan that the Civic Association supports, so we'd like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Madam of the Chairs, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Councilor Flink's office will also like to go on record in support for the same reasons. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan on behalf of the City Council at Large, Michael Flaherty. This is an Article 68 project, so the councilor would defer to the board. However, would also note that the Civic Association, as well as the neighbors, are now in support. The councilor supported this project when it was originally filed before the variances were triggered by a scaled-back project after the developer was working with the community. The council would also like to note that this is consistent with development in this area, in the Andrews Square area, and would leave it to the board's discretion.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Karen Foley, City Council at East Wasabi George's office. And this project has worked extensively with the Andrews Square Civic Association and also with the abutters, and we want to go on record in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here to speak in opposition? May I have a motion, please?
I do have one further question. I'm looking at the site plan, and where is the parking easement for, I can see initially with the hatched area how you get into spaces 10, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But how do I get into spaces 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9?
You, basically, as you come up the end of that.
Where is the easement shown? I mean,
Basically, once you move off the easement, you go underneath the building, and you're only on our property to get to the back spaces.
Okay, but when I take a look at, so I move off the easement, I then go in.
Go
and
in
out,
underneath the building.
and under the building.
Correct.
The easement's no longer needed at that point.
Back there.
Correct.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion?
I'm going to make a motion to approve with continued BPDA design review. And I know that when you guys were here the last time that you were a little bit, you were concerned at how this was going to come back, and I appreciate you guys working hard on this. Thank you.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, so you're all set. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to call the next two in for the record, calling BOA 754-552, 34 to 36 Williams Avenue, and BOA 754-553, 38 Williams Avenue. They've been deferred till September 11th at 11:30.
September 11th?
September 11th
May I have
at
a motion?
11:30.
Motion to defer.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And
What's the date again?
September 11th.
11:30.
How can you forget it? Just going back to, is Swallow Street here? Is Swallow Street here? It's now 12:45, so I'm going to make a motion for denial without prejudice.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I'm going to call the last case, BOA 790-909, 15 Whitford Street. This is a change of occupancy from a two-family dwelling to a three-family dwelling. Existing condition, no work to be performed. The violation to Article 67, Section 32, off-street parking is insufficient. Article 67, Section 8, the basement apartment is forbidden. Article 67, Section 8, a three-family dwelling is forbidden. Article 67, Section 9, the lot area is insufficient. Article 67, Section 9, the floor-to-area ratio is excessive. Article 67, Section 9, the building height, number of stories is excessive. And Article 67, Section 9, the usable open space is insufficient. Name and address for the record, please.
Patrick Mahoney with a business address of 160 Federal Street. And I'm here representing my client, Christopher Broadwick, who is with us today. He's just had stepped out of the room. And he's an occupant at 15 Whitford Street. What I've distributed to the board, or is being distributed now, is a handout, a copy of the proposed plan that's been submitted to Inspectional Services. In addition to that is an ownership or proof of ownership from Chris Broderick. Rather, the owner is Evelyn Broderick. Chris is here on behalf of his mother. He's her healthcare proxy as well as her power of attorney.
So this resolves the family opposition? It does not solve the family opposition, but what it does is it secures the fact that you are representing the owner of the property and you have all legal documents to be able to do that.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so tell us again what's being proposed.
The proposal here is to change the occupancy of a two-family dwelling by adding an undocumented living unit in the basement space to make it a three-family unit. We some of the violations as
Tell us about that unit. How long has it been there and what evidence do you have that it's been there?
It's been the unit itself we're seeking relief of today. So it hasn't been a unit and isn't a legal unit as we sit here today, but it is an existing two-family building and all the work had been done in that unit on a previous building permit.
Okay.
But
So
not the creation, not the separation of occupancy.
So this is requesting not to legalize, but a change of occupancy from a 2 to 3, okay?
And it is consistent, this type of proposal is consistent, although it is a zoning, 2F zoning subdistrict, it's consistent with the additional dwelling unit program, which is, okay.
Let's just talk about this dwelling unit. So tell us about the size, et cetera, on that unit.
The lower level unit as proposed is, the whole floor plate is just under 1,200 square feet. The unit living area is approximately 1,000 square feet. It's a one-bedroom unit. It is, the ceiling height is 7 feet 6 inches, which is consistent with building code, international building code standard. There is an egress window in the bedroom as well as the bathroom, which is one additional egress more than required by building code. The next unit above that is also a one-bedroom, and this proposal will make the top 2 floors a separate unit as well, which is a 2-bedroom unit.
So tell us about the violations.
The violations that we've been cited initially was off-street parking. The proposed plan does have 6 parking spaces. 6 are required. However, 2 of them are in tandem, thereby not meeting the appropriate parking ratio. Again, the first 2 units, Unit 1 in the lower level and Unit 2 in the second floor, are one-bedroom units, but in Rosendale and Hyde Park, 2 parking spaces are required, whether it's a studio or a 3-bedroom unit.
Okay, so the basement use is forbidden. The 3-family use is a forbidden use since this is a 2-family district.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the FAR, stories, open space,
Yeah,
etc.
so the floor area ratio, building height are, I believe, incorrectly cited because the floor area ratio is not being changed. It was living space under a previous building permit, although not a separate unit. And as well as
speak to us because this is requesting a change of use from a 2 to a 3.
yes, it is. But I was speaking just to the floor area ratio is what I was saying, as well as the building height. The building height here isn't changing, nor are the number of stories changing. The relief that we're seeking would be usable open space. 1,750 square feet is required per dwelling unit. So by adding a dwelling unit, we're adding a requirement for 1,750 square feet of open space that we're seeking relief from. By adding the dwelling unit, we are seeking relief from the use violation, 2-family and a 3-family zoning subdistrict. The proposed use is consistent with that of the neighborhood. It is a mixture of 1s, 2s, and predominantly 3s in and among the area. But we are seeking relief for that. We are seeking relief for parking. Although 6 spaces are provided, a couple of them are in tandem, and that wouldn't meet the zoning definition of a parking space. So for that reason, we are seeking relief for parking as well.
So can you explain the parking on A01, please?
The subject property is at the corner of Whitford and Augustine. There is 3 parking spaces on Augustine Street, and there is an existing curb cut there for the spaces.
So the curb cut would extend from, how would the curb cut work?
There's no proposed curb cut that we're seeking, it's existing. So there'd be 1 parking space coming in off of, 3 parking spaces coming in off of Augustine, and the other parking spaces are in tandem off of Whitford Street.
What is this 8'6" by 20, right next to the open space designation?
There's an
What is that?
there's an existing garage there.
That's the garage?
Yeah,
Okay, and that will be maintained?
it will be maintained.
And, okay, so there'll be
There's-
no parking in that garage, however?
It's obstructed. There is parking in the garage. There is 2 parking spaces in the driveway in front of the garage, and that's owed to our parking violation. There is no work associated with this relief that we're seeking.
How are the plans, Mr. Pisani?
The drawings are adequate. Counselor, could you address the issue of the mechanical room in the existing basement? Looking on drawing A1.01.
Mm-hmm. The existing mechanical room has a Navian unit and a single gas meter associated with Unit 1. There's a separate Navian unit already installed and existing in Unit 2 and 3.
So the mechanical room is just for Unit 1, it's not building mechanical room?
Correct. With the exception of there may be a water meter that wouldn't be accessible from the other units, other than by easement. There is no building code relief that we're seeking. It is entirely compliant with the International Building Code.
Any other questions from the board? Is anybody here to speak in support of this proposal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, John Allison, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, on behalf of Dan Murphy, we understand that there was an abutters meeting where no opposition was raised, and our office did receive some letters in support of the project. Thank you.
Is anybody here to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Broderick. I am the daughter of Evelyn Broderick, who is the lawful owner of this property. I was here in May and spoke against this project regarding the process that has happened behind the backs of Evelyn's children. She has 9 children. Christopher has been living with my mother for quite a number of years, and he is a building inspector for the city of Boston. And the work that has happened in the basement was commenced sometime in 2016. No permits were pulled. No inspections were done. In fact, as recently as this past winter of 2018, he sent us an email that the sump pump in the basement isn't working. So there are people already living in the basement. There are still I was here June 26th. I went by my mother's house, and then there was an electrician there doing electrical work. I said, aren't you supposed to have a permit for that? He said, oh, I pulled a permit. I checked the permits last night. There have been no permits. Even now, there's still work being done, and still no permits are being pulled.
Is your mother a resident of the building?
He lives in the house.
Is your mother resident?
My mother has dementia. We have a court case in probate next week on July 17th, contesting his ability to be her power of attorney, her healthcare proxy. I don't know how much you want to know with respect to the things that have been going on, the bank accounts, missing money, etc.
No, we don't really.
No, I didn't
know
think you want to know that. But we are challenging his durable power of attorney.
What I also would like to know is if you and the rest of your siblings have opposition to the change of use to this basement use. Keeping aside all the family issues, what is your opposition on this basement unit?
I have several.
Objectively as one can.
Objectively, at this point in time, the side area where there's a little bit of a driveway is where my mother's wheelchair ramp is supposed to be. But he won't put it in as a permanent fixture, so it's one of those portable wheelchair ramps. So she can't get in and out of the house if there are cars in that driveway. This adversely impacts my mother by having these people already living there. Her homeowner's insurance could quite easily be canceled because there's no legal occupancy, and there are people who are living in the basement.
So let me just ask you, where is this ramp supposed to be? Is that on the driveway on Whitford, or
Augustus,
is it off of
on the Augustus Ave side.
Okay.
And there are always cars parked in there, so my mother can't get in and out of the house. But I have other issues with respect to, this is just a conflict of interest because Christopher is the building inspector for Ward 18 for this house. So who's inspecting him? Nobody. All this work is being done. Neighbors have filed complaints, not me. Other neighbors have filed complaints through 311, and they go unanswered. So he's doing everything behind your backs, and he's making a mockery of this whole system, and I'm afraid you're going to approve it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So our charge today is to look at this as a zoning issue, but recognizing the fact that there is a disabled person living in that house who needs access to her unit, and to just look and see whether this is a reasonable use of this piece of property.
Madam Chair, the access to the unit.
I just okay. So this is the charge. If I can have a motion, please.
I'm going to make a motion to approve with, I guess we probably don't need, because the stuff's already there, so yeah, no, I'm just going to make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll go right in opposition. But so the motion carries on the opposition. Okay?
Thank you.
Meeting is now adjourned.
We're going into executive session.
The formal meeting is now adjourned from the Board of Appeal. The board will go into executive session for